The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keep It a Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ASA podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Night 1 of New Japan Seoul and G1 Climax 34 and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping a Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get the network's podcast over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tee store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. For IWGP tier subscribers, if you want access to the weekly live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content, you can subscribe at patreon.com/KI Strong Style, patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy,
right now we have so many people in the chat, and the young boy says we're chatting with millions and millions of subscribers, so you know, glad you guys are here with us. It has been a crazy week. Oh, we got Rambo and Slam Pig. Holler if you hear me.
If you hear me.
Remember the dude from Chappelle Show? He's like, let me holler at you. Holla, 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 holla. Oh man, let me crack one open for the working man.
Aldi.
Yeah, too bad. No. This is a high noon. Last week, Dan Coffin accused me of drinking alcohol, and he was wrong. But this week, we got him covered. Oh man, it's been a crazy week. Yo, we had a fucking leak in our ceiling. Pipe like burst in the hallway. Not a major like explosion, but Rambo and Slam Pig says scam.
You muted yourself.
I didn't mute myself. This thing keeps unrecognizing the Rodecaster mic for some reason.
Man, we gotta get you a new laptop, man.
I don't know. It's the setup. It's fucking crazy. I don't know. But yeah, no, anyway, so we had a fucking leak in the ceiling, and I'll spare you all the details. It's a long story, but like, yeah, the HOA had to basically replace the entirety of the drywall up there. But that's been going on for like several days now. It's bullshit. Well, House of the Dragon's back. The Boys is back. Apparently New Japan Pro Wrestling seems to be back.
Well, at least the HOA is covering you there on the damage.
They weren't going to. They were trying to say if it was AC related, it was going to be through our insurance. And then, swerve. Turned out it was on them. Jeremy, I got to tell you something. I have come to a realization, and it's going to be shocking to some of the listeners. I have come to the realization that I love women's wrestling. I know for many years I garnered, a bit where I pretended as though I didn't like women's wrestling, but I've seen the light the light of day. I've come around on it. I'm now going to be pursuing my love of women's wrestling. And you know what that means?
What does that mean?
Because I love women's wrestling, I have to hate AEW.
You already do.
Well, now it's been magnified. It's a real thing now. I can't love AEW because I love women's wrestling, and those two things are, in polar opposite to one another. So that's where we're at with things now. So
Josh, the anti AEW host of this show. Oh man. Well, before we jump into stuff, we had a special request from James Boyd. So I got to ask you, Josh, if you were invited to a cookout hosted by us, by black folks, what are you bringing to the cookout?
Probably nothing. I'll tell you straight up, I've been to many cookouts hosted by friends and family of mine that are black, and I don't think.
What was that?
I don't know. I keep getting unplugged. I have no idea why this is happening. It's never happened before. Hold on. Let's make sure everything is plugged in tightly. I don't know why this is happening. Man, I never thought that the botches and the issues on this show would be coming from me.
Live on the air.
Live production issues. Okay. Hopefully that takes care of it. I don't know. I plugged everything in as tight as possible. So, yeah, no, I've never brought anything to a cookout. I suppose if I was being honest, I would probably I would do the same thing that I do for a white person's cookout as I do for a black person's cookout, as I do for my Hispanic family. Like, I just message them and be like, yo, what you need me to bring? And most of the time it'll be like cups, soda, ice, some utensils. I won't be bringing any food that I cooked. I'm an okay cook. You've had some of my food. My food's not bad, but I don't think that anything that I cook is cookout worthy. Maybe if I had a grill, but I don't have a grill, so I'm not.
All right, well, we'll see how James takes that answer.
I wish I had a better answer, but I'm not gonna line step here, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not even gonna say the stuff, but I'm not gonna pretend like I know how to make any particularly delicious dish that's going to be widely accepted in other cultures. Like, no, just not gonna make anything.
As long as you're not bringing no potato salad, you're straight.
Well, I love potato salad.
I don't know if that's the go-to gimmick to bring to cookout.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. No, I don't know how to make that shit. I wouldn't do that.
Rambone Slant Pig, what you bringing? We know you be cooking all the time, smoking meats. Let us know.
Be careful. Be careful.
Oh man. Well, let's jump into things here. We had a big New Japan Soul show this past Sunday. Night 1 of the tour kicked off in Hokkaido Prefectural Sports Center. We had an attendant.
He said beer in the good sense, not to say anything problematic. Oh, man. Oh, all right. Go ahead, Jeremy.
So we had an attendance of 2,370 here in the Hokkaido Prefectural Sports Center. And first thing here, we had news that the Roughneck Shota Umino was pulled from the tour due to back issues. So hopefully,
what caused that?
I don't know. He wrestled our good friend Rocky Romero on Wednesday.
Wednesday, you say?
Yeah.
For what company were they wrestling? Did this accident occur?
Well, I don't know if it didn't happen there. He wrestled Rocky on AEW, the tape for Rampage. But
so this injury occurred in AEW, and now the health and safety of Shota Umino is put into question. It makes sense.
Well, according to Umino, he was backstage stretching at All Together, back tightened up really bad, couldn't move, and so he was pulled from All Together, pulled from New Japan Soul.
Mm-hmm. A likely story. From what I understand, the injury occurred in Tony Khan's ring, wrestling one of Tony Khan's employees. Just gonna throw that out there.
So hopefully Shooter is it's a little side injury. We'll be back in time for G1, but
who knows if he's gonna be back for G1. He was probably gonna win the G1. Now he's out. Now we're gonna have to have someone else in there take his spot. This is a conspiracy. It's the workings of Tony Khan.
So show kicked off. We had the two new young lions making their debut. We had Daiki Nagai and Masatora Yasuda. They wrestled to a 10-minute time limit draw.
You know what was funny was on the commentary here, Walker Stewart said that Sho Makato begrudgingly admitted that these two individuals making their debut are much further along in their wrestling journeys than he was when he was at the same stage of his wrestling career. And after watching them wrestle, I'm like, Sho Makato, you got it all wrong. These guys are already in their first match surpassed where you are today. They're so much better than Murashima and Sho Makato. Like, it's kind of crazy. This type of wrestling that I saw here between these two individuals making their debut is exactly what you want to see from young lions. Just fire, intensity, technical prowess, athleticism, good size, good look. These guys have real promise.
Yeah, and this plays into a question that we got from Barry Wall. Says, do the new young lions already seem better than Sho Makato and the other one, even though it's only been one match so far? And yeah, like you're saying, this kind of remind me of, Narita and Umino back in the day, like these young lions that we would see on like Lionsgate Project or Young Lion Cup shows where they're showing a lot of fire, a lot of intensity. The grappling is really good.
Yeah, I mean, it even kind of reminds me a little bit of the first time we saw Yumura and Narita.
Tsuji?
No, I'm sorry. What's wrong with me? Okan
and Narita?
No. God, we've gone through too many generations of young lions. Kiyomiya and no, not what's wrong with me?
Kiyomiya is Noah.
Okay. Who's the Noah young lion right now?
Oiwa.
Okay. Oiwa and then Fujita?
It would have been Oiwa and Nakashima, right?
No. Who's the junior in TMDK? Is it Fujita?
Yeah.
It was Oiwa and Fujita. When they first debuted, we were like, holy fuck, these guys really, really know how to wrestle. And it wasn't quite to that level, but like it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, where I was like, you could already see the promise that's there. Like they've got an incredible foundation to build off of. And, typical young lion booking, 10-minute time limit draw. That's nothing new there. And we'll probably see, a bevy of these as time goes on. But a lot of promise there. Good looks. At this point, I don't know which one's which, but I think Yasuda is the one that is mixed Hispanic and Japanese, right?
Yeah, he's the one that was born in Mexico and then moved to Japan.
So he kind of has a little bit of that, what's her, like that Julia vibe going for him, like male Julia. So, yeah. But yeah, both guys really, really good. I liked this a lot. And I think it was definitely one, if you didn't watch the show, I would recommend that match. I think it's something that's going to be, we always say this, but I think these guys will probably be something. And this is a pivotal match that we'll look back and talk about how they're intrinsically linked and everything like that.
Yeah. So then the main card kicked off with the United Empire team of Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb, and TJP defeating Katsuya Murashima, Satoshi Kojima, Sho Makato, Tomioka Hanma, and Tomohiro Ishii, 7 minutes and 40 seconds.
This was a fine opener. You would assume with the young lions over there on the Hantai team that it was pretty much a foregone conclusion what was going to happen here, but this was pretty entertaining for what it was worth. And considering the implications that would come out later in the evening with the play-in brackets, this was a little bit of a foreshadowing match here.
Yeah, we'll get to those brackets later. So yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing there of things to come. My man Kojima back here on the tour, double champ in MLW. Yeah,
losing.
But
in the opener.
Yeah, fun matchup here. Towards the end, it was Akira hitting the fireball on Shomakato to get the win. And post match, we had Callum Newman and Tomohiro Ishii staring off again, kind of leading into the G1 bracket. And plus, they faced off at the end of last year as well. So,
yeah, that match in Cork and Hall at the end of December was really something special. And I hope that we see these guys lock horns sometime in the near future again. Also, worth noting, Francesco Akira, his first match back aired post injury. So, he was back fairly short. Like, it was a pretty short time frame from the time that he was injured during Super Junior. So, good to see he's back healthy and able to go.
Yeah, luckily it was nothing too serious, and that he was able to make a quick comeback.
It's like Conor McGregor, pulling out of fights, injured, quote unquote.
So the next matchup, we had the Just Five Guys team of Doki and Taichi defeating the House of Torture team of Ren Narita and Yoshinobu Kanemaru 9 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah, this one was kind of interesting too, just considering the ties between Doki, Taichi, and Kanemaru going back to their Suzuki-gun days. So kind of like an interconnectedness there. We haven't touched on this too much, but I know some of the other shows have been on this for a bit now, where Taichi has been stopping and staring at the camera for extended periods of time, and that trend kind of continued here. I can't say personally that I had seen, because I think most of his matches have been on the undercards.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I haven't been watching those matches, so I hadn't really seen this gimmick. I'd heard about it. I don't know if it was a little bit more of a nuanced thing before, or if it was as exaggerated as this is. But Taichi has been, or at least in this match, like just staring deadpan into the camera with like kind of like a squinty eye look for prolonged periods of time. He did it during the ring intros, and then during the match, there were times where he would just stop and give a knowing look. And then at the end of the match, when him and Doki were on their way back to the back, he stopped before he went into the curtains and did the same thing. So like, I know that some people are eating this up, and I have to admit, I'm intrigued with what's going on with Taichi. Don't get me wrong, but I'd kind of heard that like this was a nuanced thing. Like it was sort of like just a little bit of a breadcrumb, a little hint, something that you had to kind of really like pay attention to. But he's slapping you in the face with it. Like he's looking for a long ass time into the camera, letting you know, like, I am teasing something. So there's not a lot of nuance there, but you do have to wonder what this is leading to. If it is something that is major, like a character shift or a realignment of like factions, or heel face dynamic, or maybe teasing somebody coming into the company or something like that. Or is it something that is going to end up being like, we're not even going to get a major payoff from it? You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes we've seen stuff like this where people are teasing things and then it's just some like kind of headcanon bullshit that's tied to like a produce show, or
yeah, honestly,
or something on their social media that we don't know about.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't really like, I've been seeing it happen, but I haven't been like, oh, this means something. I thought, oh, Taichi's just being Taichi and doing something entertaining.
No, I'm pretty sure it means something, because he's doing it so overtly. You know what I mean? Like he's letting you know, like, I am looking into the soul of the camera. I think it is a story beat of something. What it's going to be, I don't know. What the payoff will be, we can only speculate. But it's too in your face for it to not actually be leading to something.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see what it means. Maybe it plays into his role in G1, which we'll talk about here.
Taichi, it's his year. He's winning the fucking G1. Let's go.
So after that matchup, we had the team of Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi defeating the House of Torture team of Dick Togo and Evil, 8 minutes and 10 seconds. And this was originally supposed to be a 6-man tag with Shota Umino, and I think Yujiro would have been on the House of Torture side, but also Umino out just turned into a tag match here.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Tony, for saving us from Yujiro wrestling.
Oh, boy. This was fine. I mean, Bishamon out there with Dick Togo and Evil. During Tanahashi's 10-point plan for the company, he talked about, finding ways to reduce the ongoing, interference from House of Torture. I've noticed in some of the matches we've seen a little bit less of those antics. I don't know if that is like a company mandate or if it's just these are undercard matches with less stakes involved and less of a spotlight, and so it's just not as prudent on them to do all of those antics. But I noticed that there was a lot less of it here, and they did do the clean job to Bishamon, who you got to figure they're probably gunning for tag titles soon again.
Yeah, I'll see the top team in New Japan right now, so I'm sure they'll heat those guys up for tag season. Also, both of them, we know Goto is locked in for G1. Yoshihashi's going to have to fight his way through, but I'm sure after that, they'll be in the tag title mix. So now, following that, we had the LIJ team of Tetsuya Naito and Teton defeating the Just Five Guys team of Taka Michinoku and Yuya Uemura.
Yeah, this one was cool. It's great to see Teton, still sticking around. I didn't expect to see him be around in Japan this long after the Super Juniors. I sort of expected him going back to Mexico to CMLL, and maybe this was sort of like a send-off. We did get T-shirt Naito. So, Naito wasn't really going all out here. And interesting to see him and Uemura kind of lock it up a little bit. There was that period earlier in the year where after Uemura shaved his head, he dyed it red, and it was kind of reminiscent a little bit of, some of the LIJ members we see in the past, like Kamitachi or Naito when they had their red hair with the shaved head. So, it's going to be interesting to see those guys in the G1 opposite one another. And I feel like even before they actually done the G1 block announcements at this point in the evening?
No, so it comes after the junior tag title match.
Okay. And even with that being the case, I totally thought we would, based on this match, we'd wind up seeing these guys in the same block, and I believe that is the case.
Are they in the same block? No.
Or am I wrong?
They're in opposite blocks.
Oh, okay. Disregard. The best analysis for New Japan in the entire internet right here.
So Teton gets to win over Taka. Like I said, nice seeing Teton outside of Super Junior season. He's been around for a little bit now. I think he's going to be around for the whole tour. So yeah, fun having him around. Then following that, we had the Never Openweight 6-man tag team title match, and we have new champions as Tanahashi, Bolton Oleg, and Toru Yano defeated the champions from LIJ, Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, and Yota Tsuji.
Yeah, this one was a little, I guess, perplexing, but I don't know if it's something to completely be up in arms over, one way or the other. Last week, was it just last week when we reviewed Dominion?
Yes.
Okay, so that's when they did the title change. I'd kind of said it was surprising to see, and I don't even know if there's an official team name, but I'm going to call them the guys in the jackets to see
the Bebop trio.
Yeah. Okay. The Bebop trio after they had just debuted their new looks with the trench coats and the pompadour hair and everything, to see them drop the titles immediately was a little surprising. Like, what's the point of them coming out as a unified unit with an actual look? So then a week later they regain the titles. on the one hand, you could say it's a little bit of hot potatoing. On the other hand, it is the never 6-man tag team titles. It's not like, even though we've had some prolonged periods with some great teams and some great matches, this is still the least outside of KOPW, the least prestigious title or tag team titles in the company. It has a long history of being passed around. And that's not necessarily, in my opinion, 100% a terrible thing, because it does create excitement for live audiences to be able to see title changes that seem somewhat significant, even if it's not, an IWGP world title change. Like it's something that enhances the excitement of the show to see different characters get opportunities to carry titles around. And, I don't think it necessarily hurts the credibility of LIJ to drop these belts in short order. One thing I did notice, and I don't know if this is, I don't know if I'm reaching here, but, Uemura wins the KOPW, his first title, loses it in the first defense and is unable to kind of hold on to that. And then shortly after that, his rival Yota Tsuji, one of the 4 Reiwa guys, he wins the Never titles. They lose it in their first defense as well. And so I don't know if that's a trend that is going to continue. I don't think Narita held the 6-mans already a while back, right?
Yeah, with Suzuki and Despy.
Right. And I don't know if I think they probably did have some title defenses. I'd have to look. But I don't think Umino's had a title yet.
No.
So just, something to kind of pay attention to. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's intentional, but it's there.
Yeah, that was a good match. Yeah, we did have a question from MJ saying, what was the point in flipping the trios titles here? And yeah, when it comes to the, the Never 6-man or pretty much any trios titles, I feel like those are the set of titles that you should have a ton of title matches. They should be flipping back and forth all the time. You should be throwing in fresh trios all the time, doing some cool matchups in that division. And so it's a Never 6-man title. I think we got spoiled with, Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi, and Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii having these super long reigns and being these mega teams, and that's cool. But on the other end, you have these mix of guys here. You have Ishii, Tsuji, Bushi, and Hiromu, and then Bolton, Tanahashi, and Yano is just kind of these weird mix of guys on both sides. And I think it's fun to flip the belts back and forth, have these title matches on a show like this or a Road 2 show. You can put it in the main event. It's an exciting kind of thing, and it's that one thing where you talk about wanting to have each title have its own like identity and definition. Like this is like the title that you never know when it's going to change, so you always have to you want to be tuned in because it could change on the night that you show up to that show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you want to overdo it. Me personally, I have heard people say like the 6-man titles, basically the argument that you just made, like that's what they're there for. And to an extent, I do agree. I think you can overdo it, which in the past they have overdone it in the past to where the title became quasi meaningless. But like you said, in recent times, we've seen more serious title reigns, and I think it's okay to kind of vacillate between those. Where if you have a good feud with a trio of guys, or if you have a team that you really want to push and give them that rub, they can do that for a prolonged period. And then when it's over, it's not like the entirety of the prestige of the belt has been shifted. You can go back to the hot potatoing, and you can kind of utilize these titles are makeshift. They can kind of blend in and become whatever you need them to be, whether that is a low ranking hot potato title or something to just excite and add a little bit of flavor to fun, exciting 6-man tag team matches, or you can enhance a feud and really push guys. I mean, you can do it all with these, and that's kind of the nice thing with them.
Yeah. So Bolton Oleg, he gets the win over Bushi here, which it is a heavyweight over a junior, but it's also still a young lion over an established guy. And we've seen established, roster juniors beat quote unquote heavyweight young lions before. And I know there's the argument on whether or not Bolton's graduated. Some people say he is, some people say he isn't. To me, he's still wearing.
He said that he has.
Yeah, but he's still wearing the all black. He's still, running out there like a young lion. So,
right, and that's where it's tough to call. Like, I can't criticize you too. I can't be like, "Oh, Jeremy, you're wrong for calling him a young lion," because he's got all of the trappings of a young lion. He's still running out there, and he's still wearing the gear. And I don't even think it would be necessarily bad for him to continue to wear the all black. I mean, we've seen a bevy of great powerhouse guys in the past have that exact attire and run entire companies, a la Goldberg, a la Brock Lesnar, a la Stone Cold, Bobby Lashley. So it's not like he has to ditch the look to get himself over, but he's still running. So it's hard to say, but I mean, he's definitely, in my opinion, a level above the other Lions, but just based on his trajectory and the statement. But it's not that far off from like where HENARE was in the early stages of this show,
Yeah. Rambo says that Ola Button's eating chanko by the bucket like a young lion.
Another thing too is, like, I know people were surprised that LIJ lost here, but I did think about it for half a second. I'm like, you got 3 heavyweights against 2 juniors and a heavyweight. Like, what did they think was going to happen here? Eventually, I mean, the odds were in the favor of the bigger men.
Yeah. So Bolton gets the win here. So they're the Never 6-man champions once again. And there was a lot of interactions here between Bolton Oleg and Yota Tsuji, which I loved. And Bolton just, muscling up Tsuji for that side-to-side gut-wrench suplex spot. So, yeah, I would love to see those guys have a singles match.
Yeah, just a continuation of what we remarked about last week, where these two guys had some interesting and very entertaining sequences with one another, and that kind of continued here.
Yeah. So following that, we had the IWGP Junior.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is sparkling
Aldi.
seltzer. Yeah, this is from Aldi. You have to balance it out. You have one alcoholic beverage, then you have one, hydrating beverage. That way, you don't go off the deep end on the live audience. You don't want to get sloppy on here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Got to keep it profesh.
So we had the junior tag titles on the line. The War Dogs, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney, they defeated the challengers of TMDK, Kosei Vegeta, and Robbie Eagles in 17 minutes and 52 seconds.
This was a very good junior tag team match. I don't know if it necessarily hit the high heights that I sort of expected from this team, or from this matchup between these two teams, but it was still very good. Got a lot of time, a lot of excitement, very hard hitting. It somewhat reminded me of, and actually we kind of seen this tactic quite a few times now from the Bullet Club War Dogs, where they use their size and strength to really not just dominate, but to isolate individual members of a team, divide and conquer. That's kind of seemed to be their MO, and it's been paying off for them each and every time they're out there. And that's what they did here again. They found a vulnerability in Fujita and kind of capitalized on that. Fujita showed a lot of heart. I was expecting the title change here, but alas, it was, for naught. But yeah, and we've seen this similar story all throughout Japanese Puroresu tag team history, where a lot of famous matches, you have, a veteran and a young guy teaming up to take on a powerhouse team. Somewhat reminds me of like the 1988 All Japan tag team tournament finals. And, that they put up a valiant effort, but ultimately it's not enough to prevail over those dominant, heel powerhouse tag team guys. And that's kind of the story that was at play here. And once again, Bullet Club War Dogs really kind of carving out a pretty serious niche for themselves in a division that's known for being very unsteady and having a lot of turnover. They're showing a large amount of dominance for a prolonged period of time. Yeah,
and they really showed dominance here in this match. They were brawling all over the arena. They were throwing Fujita and Eagles into the cheers, into the crowds. And, the beginning of the end came towards the end of the match where Robbie Eagles, he does that big tope. He gets caught, and Drilla gives him the Drilla killer on the outside of the floor like he did to Ninja Mac during Best of the Super Junior. So Robbie Eagles is dead. So I'm like, man, if they're going to win, it's got to be Vegeta's going to pull it out by himself. And like you mentioned, he was fighting hard. He was kicking out of all their moves. But in the end, he couldn't outpower these dudes. Got hit with a big spear. They hit him with the full clip, that suplex spear combo, 1, 2, 3. The War Dogs retain. And yeah, it wasn't, like you mentioned, it wasn't a super high end match. I'd probably go about 3.5 on it, but it was still very good back and forth action towards the end there where they isolated Vegeta and got the win.
Yeah, I'm just looking at. I wanted to get a vibe off of like what cage. I haven't looked at the cage match ratings at all up till now, so I just wanted to see. And this is it's the second highest rated match of the night. Little surprised by that, but it's it's still up there. And for me, I don't know. I think the story of the match was really great. I don't want to slam any of the workers here. I thought they had a very, very good match. I just kind of grade junior tag team wrestling on a different level. I expect a certain level of like flips and work rate. And this was not quite that type of tag team wrestling. This is more like classic, Southern style tag team wrestling mixed in with hard hitting smash mouth like Perezu. It was closer to like a 1980s All Japan or 1990s All Japan style tag team match, which is pretty high praise, but it was more about the story than it was and the drama than it was the action itself.
Yeah, and also did a great job, with the Drill Killer, setting that up in that Ninja Mac match to see what happens when you get hit on the outside of it. Like you're done, you're out. So they did a great job establishing that. So yeah, it was all about Vegeta showing that heart and fighting through at the end, and because he kicked out of a lot of stuff before they finally put him away. So he looked really good there. He got a lot of shine in this matchup. So yeah, more of a story match, more try to elevate, show the fighting spirit of Kosei Vegeta, and they'll have to live to fight another day.
Absolutely.
But yeah, good stuff there. War Dogs retain, and then that's going to take us into the G1 Climax 34 participants announcement. So first they announced the 18 men who have their spots locked in the tournament. So in the A block, we have Tetsuya Naito, Shota Umino, Shingo Takagi, Sonata, Great Okan, Zack Sabre Jr., Gabe Kidd, Evil, and Jake Lee. And then over in the B block, we have Hiroki Goto, El Phantasmo, Yota Tsuji, Jeff Cobb, Henare, David Finley, Ren Narita, Yuya Uemura, and Konosuke Takeshita. So
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to run through the play-in guys.
Oh, I was just going to say, as always, when they're making the announcements, I always kind of listen for the crowd reactions, and I felt like the two biggest crowd reactions were for Jake Lee and Konosuke Takeshita. That's not super telling. I think that there's always an excitement when you have outsiders being presented in a G1, format. But I would say that Takeshita probably for the live audience, I thought he had the loudest like verbal response of anybody.
Yeah, there was a huge pop for him, and he was like the last, slide of that video for the B block. So it was like, boom, Konosuke Takeshita, AEW, DDT. The crowd was like, the crowd, big pop. So. But
at the same time, I don't know if that necessarily will translate to how the live audiences will react to him every night. Because, for instance, I remember when Kenta was announced for his first G1, and he was coming in, and like there was a huge pop, but then like,
Noah Trash.
By night 3, he was getting called Noah Trash. So you just never know how people are going to react, but it is very exciting.
Yeah. Then the last two spots, the last spot in the A block and B block will be determined by two separate play-in tournaments. And so those will be kick off here on the New Japan Seoul Tour, with the finals being in Tokyo Budokan on July 5th. So in the A block side, we have Tomohiro Ishii, Yoshihashi, Callum Newman, Kenta, Chase Owens, and Yujiro Takahashi. On the B block side, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toru Yano, Bolton Oleg, Satoshi Kojima, Taichi, and TJP. So for the A block, it'll be Chase versus Yoshihashi and Yujiro versus Callum Newman, with Ishii getting the bye there, and that's going to happen on June 22nd. So the winners will face Ishii and Kenta, respectively, on July 3rd. And then the semifinal winners, lost my spot here. Semifinal winners will advance to July 5th finals. And then the B block, you're going to have Toru Yano and Bolton Oleg and Kojima versus TJP happening on June 23rd. And the winners of those will face Tanahashi and Taichi, respectively, on July 3rd. Semifinals winners will then advance to the finals. So, Josh, overall thoughts on the guys that are locked in, these playing guys, and the overall feel of G1 34?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm scrolling through some of our group chat texts. Rambo Steinbig said Takeshita works way too hard in the ring to get that latter-day Kenta reaction. I hear you, sir. But you know what? Kenta was working pretty hard that first G1.
Yeah, that 2019 G1, he was locked in. He was, he was trying to pull back the clock.
Trying. Yeah, so you did a great job recapping everything there, Jeremy. I'm more of like a visual guy, so I wanted to take a look at the qualifiers so I could see what I'm looking at. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of positive things here. I think what's been interesting. So we got they announced the people that be in the play-in blocks on Sunday, but we had to wait a few days to figure out what the actual lineup is. And now, so we finally have that lineup as of this morning. And so now all throughout the last few days, people on Twitter, people on social media, our friends, people on Discord, everyone's been talking about this. So it's been a lot of positive reception. It's been a while since New Japan has had this kind of buzz going into a G1 Climax. And I think there's a lot of really great things to praise about it. I mean, a lot of it's not anything that we haven't already said. I mean, the return to the 10-man block is very exciting. Something that we've been calling for a long time is the younger guys to be, put into a prominent position, and some of the lesser delivering talents to be, kind of pushed out of the tournament so that it can go back to being a higher quality. And we're seeing that. And then, when it comes to this play-in tournament thing, I think that's a great idea because it really does give us something to pay attention to during this tour pre G1. And what is this tour usually? It's
so normally this is New Japan Road.
Okay, it's just Road. Yeah, so normally during this period, like, we don't even have a name for the tour. They're just calling it Road, and it's pretty lackluster. But in this case, we've got a whole mini tournament leading into G1, and I think that they've done a marvelous job not only picking the guys that should be in this tournament, but the layout of how it's booked. Like, the only thing I was complaining about prior to all of this was I thought it would be better to have 8 men in each block so that you wouldn't have any buys going into it.
You're talking about the play-in tournament.
Yeah, the play-in tournament. I'm not a big fan of buys, and so I just always think it's better to work with that even number, like 8, as opposed to, well, they're both even numbers, but the 8 works better than 6. However, when you look at the format of the tournament, the guys that are getting the buys are the ones that are probably the ones who were on the bubble closer than anyone else in the play-in from being eliminated from the tournament. So the guys that are getting that bye, that's Ishii, Kenta, Taichi, and Tanahashi. And those were all people where if they had been announced for the G1, you wouldn't have really been surprised. So it makes sense that they're the ones getting the buys because, they're the more successful, prolonged individuals in that G1 tournament. And then the other guys who are having to have that extra match, whether that's Cal Newman, Yujiro, Yoshihashi, Chase Owens, Yano, Oleg Bolton, Kojima, TJP, I think they have peripheral fringe claims to potentially be in the tournament, but they're a lot less strong than the 4 guys getting the buys. And I think it there's a lot that can really happen here, because not only do you set up a really compelling story for whoever it is that gets into the A and B block coming out of this tournament, you also can spin off your own individual stories coming out of the play-in, whether that's something that will continue to the next tour, or even like, for instance, let me give you a for instance. Let's say Tanahashi, right? Let's say Tanahashi loses, whether that's to Yano or Oleg Boltin, but let's say he loses and he's just not in the tournament. Now that could completely reshape the motivation for his entire year between now and next year, you know, and then potentially his aim is to get back to the G1 and maybe have his swan song because he was left out this year. And so there are things like that. There are narratives that could be shaped and stories that could be told prior to even getting to the G1, just based on this tournament alone. And I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and for that Tanahashi scenario you mentioned, it also adds another wrinkle if Bolton does it, because they're, you know, in a trio, they're the never six-man champion, so that adds a little bit of issue there. And, you know, if a guy like Bolton Oleg wins, or Callum Newman, that's an elevation there, some fresh talent, getting some, you know, new debuts in the G1, and you can really push those guys going forward. And, you know, Callum Newman is a guy that we've been seeing get a lot of opportunities. He had that singles match with Ishii towards the end of last year. He had the match with Naito at Dominion last week. So he's been getting a lot of big opportunities. There's been a lot of focus on him. I mean, that's kind of been his whole arc this year, is, you know, I need to get into G1. And so now he has that opportunity. So you look at that play-in those brackets, and look, man, there's some favorites in there. You know, of course, you know, you want to see the ace in there. You want to see, you know, the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii in the tournament. But then at the same time, it's like you had some young blood there, like Bolton Oleg and Callum Newman. It's like, yeah, I would love to see those guys running in too. So it makes it very intriguing, like you mentioned, really spiced up this tour here. Kind of makes a tour must watch now to see, you know, which of these guys are going to get in.
Yeah, when I was talking to friend of the show, Chris Sampson, he sent this to me. He didn't know I was going to read it off on the show, but I think it was interesting what he said. So he said in each side of the brackets, you have one legend. In this case, Ishii and Tanahashi is like one guy that's on the bubble, Yoshihashi and Taichi, one new guy, Newman and Oleg, one upset special, which is Kenta and Yano, one credible wrestler who doesn't produce results, Chase Owens and TJP, and then one wild card in Yujiro and Kojima. And I don't know if I 100% agree with everything that was laid out there, but I think that that's it's pretty dead on. It's a really good analysis of what you're looking at here. And one of the complaints that I had was that I wasn't sure that, you know, I was like, okay, the play-in guys that are here, it's a pretty good mix, but hypothetically, there's a lot of them that I couldn't necessarily see going through just given the field. Then today they put out the actual brackets, and the way they laid the brackets out does make it believable. Like, I'll give you for instance, Yano was a guy where I was like, just looking at I was like, when he's in a block with Tanahashi, Oleg Bolton, Taichi, Kojima, and TJP, like, I just can't see him winning a single elimination tournament to get into the G1. Like, that's just not a realistic thing. But now that the brackets have come out and I see, like, first night he's fighting Oleg Bolton, I could see him rolling up Oleg Bolton. Mm-hmm. And then second night he's got Tanahashi, and I've seen him roll up Tanahashi a time or two. And then on night 3, we don't know who he's getting. Like, you know what I mean? It could be TJP. And could I see Yano going through that particular path and getting through? I'm like, yeah, I actually could. So now, based on the way that they've structured these brackets, they've done a really great job kind of making things attainable for even, like, I don't want to say it for sure, but like even guys that I have no doubt are going to, I don't think they're going to get in, but like even like a Chase Owens or a Yujiro, you look at their path and it's not as difficult to imagine them getting through as it would have been prior to seeing these brackets.
Yeah, we know Chase Owens is a guy that they like to give sneaky wins to. So, yeah, I could see Chase beating Yoshihashi there, then goes to face Ishii. And he's I think he's beaten Ishii like the last 2 singles matches they've had. So we've seen that happen. He could easily beat Ishii and go to that finals, and then you never know who gets. What if Callum gets through? Like I could see him beating Callum in the finals. I could see Chase beating Kenta, his partner, or Yujiro. So it all depends on how things shake out. But I think everybody has a decent chance of advancing to the finals of their respective blocks.
Yeah, and there's very compelling stories. So, I mean, we've had the thing with Taichi I talked about where he's looking in the camera. Who knows what the fuck that's about, but maybe that could be progressed by him getting it into the tournament. Tanahashi, Kojima, 2 older guys. We never have seen them have their quote unquote send off G1s. You could probably even throw maybe Ishii / Kenta into that mix if that's the route you wanted to go. Oleg Bolton, TJP, Callum Newman, none of them have ever been in the tournament before. And especially for Oleg Bolton and Callum Newman all year, there's been the hubbub that they're going to be in the G1. Now they're not. They're trying to find their way in, and that would be like this incredible learning experience for both of them. But, they're going to have to go through a pretty deep tournament just to even attain that spot. And then you got TJP with the whole Capitan story and, him trying to be an open weight and do all the tournaments and hold all the gold and fight everybody. And I'm just calling it right now. I think him and Taichi wind up against one another in the second round of that bracket. And that plays a ton off of their match that they had in the, the faction warfare gauntlet match earlier this year where TJP beat Taichi unexpectedly. And then Yoshihashi and Chase Owens are 2 guys that they've been in the tournament. They haven't been doing great necessarily, but they're always there. And now they're ousted and they're trying to get back there. And I mean, Yoshihashi's out, but Goto's in. Like that, what does that tell you about the power dynamic of Bishamon? There's just a lot at play here.
Yeah, man, there's so much nuanced storytelling here. And, I would love, for the ace of MLW to advance, but I'm agreeing with you. I think TJP is going to get the win over him to set up that, match with Taichi. Yeah, like you mentioned, playing off the faction warfare that they had between Just 5 Guys, United Empire, where TJP pinned Taichi. So Taichi could get the win back, or TJP could beat him again to solidify, being the captain. So there's so many different directions that they can go with this play-in tournament. I want to go to the blocks real quick before we answer all the questions that we got. A ton of questions here.
Okay.
So with the blocks, I'm a little bit, I don't know what the right feeling is, but there's just certain guys that I would have kept out of Naito's block. Because I did a fantasy booking thing on the Patreon past Friday, and I was saying, top guys I think who could win this tournament are Shingo, Sabre, and Umino. I would put them in the opposite block of Naito and have them, going in alive in the semifinals. And now all 3 of those guys, who are 3 guys I thought could win, are now in the same block as Naito, which I know in the past they have done it where the winner is in the block as a champion. We saw that in 2019 with Kota Ibushi being in the same block as Okada and having that match and then having a rematch in Tokyo Dome. But that was also part of Double Gold Dash. So it's not likely now that Sabre, Shingo, or Umino can win now with them. I think their chances go down dramatically with them being in the same block as Naito.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm pretty sure Naito is defeating Jon Moxley at Forbidden Door to get back to World Championship. And so normally you wouldn't want to run back a rematch at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, but they've been doing that for a few years now.
That's what I said. I know they've done it for last, the 2019 one. I think they might have done it in 2020. And so, but I just think that if they do want to protect a title match for Tokyo Dome, their chances go down.
I agree with you. I do. But the counter argument to that is, as great as the B block talent is, who in that B block could you, if you're just boiling it down to simple, what is a marquee match for Wrestle Kingdom? Who out of that entire B block, including the guys that are in the play-in round, you know, because you have to factor them in as being potential guys. Is there a single match there that you could realistically see headlining the Dome where it's Naito versus them?
There's two I see. I could see it being Naito versus Yota Tsuji. It is Wrestle Kingdom is on a Saturday, so I think they'll draw well regardless of who Naito's in there with. So if you want to give Tsuji the big spotlight, there's a lot of story there. They had the match this year at Sakura Genesis, so there's a lot of story you can do there with Tsuji coming back and finally beating Naito at the Tokyo Dome and really establishing him. And then the other guy is Konosuke Takeshita, which I know a lot of people would be very upset about if he were to win this tournament and go on to main event in the Tokyo Dome.
I really couldn't see that second. And I know I'm doing a funny shtick about AEW earlier in the show, but like putting that aside, this is my serious hat. I just don't see that unless I couldn't. Where I would change my tone on that is, we know that Takeshita is going to put in incredible performances. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. However, it depends on what kind of crowd reactions he's getting. If he like comes in and is just like a fucking superstar supernova and is getting incredible crowd reactions and the gates are going up and like it's undeniable that this is a guy, then yeah, I might be inclined to be like, yeah, maybe they need to go with that. But he's a DDT guy at the end of the day. That's where like his bones were made in Japan. Not saying that we've never had anyone come from DDT and make a mark in New Japan. I mean, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi do exist, but I just don't think that that's going to happen here. I think Takeshita goes far in the tournament. I do, for sure. But I don't see him and Naito as being a big enough marquee match for them to do the Dome, personally. The only match on the B block the only two that I think that New Japan maybe could go with is like Tsuji is likely. I guess if they really, really wanted to go this way, they could go David Finlay just because they seem to love the guy, but I doubt it. And then looking at the play-in matches, I mean, you got Taichi, Kojima, TJP, Yano, Oleg Bolton, Tanahashi, if he wants to pull the ace president card and make himself have one last main event and win the G1. I'm not too worried about the prospects of anyone from the B block headlining the Dome against Naito, unless it was Tsuji. And given the fact that he already won the New Japan Cup and already faced Naito earlier in the year, I find that prospect less likely. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just doing simple math, I think you're still right. I think that the likely opponent for Naito in the Dome is sitting in the A block with him.
Yeah, it could happen. I'm just used to that old school mentality of the challengers usually in the opposite block of the champion, but they've kind of broken from that a little bit in the last couple of years as well. And yeah, also there is a small chance that Naito loses to Mox and there's no champion in the G1 at all.
That's not happening. It's pretty John. That's one thing we got to talk about here. Jon Moxley is not in the tournament, and we recently were, dialoguing with individuals out there who were adamant that Jon Moxley would be in this tournament, and we told people they wouldn't, and they thought he would, and they were wrong. and it's pretty clear why. I mean, there's quite a few reasons that Jon Moxley wouldn't be in the tournament, even if he did retain the title. I mean, I know earlier in the year I was advocating for Jon Moxley to be in the tournament, but that's more like, I would love it if he was, but it's just not realistic that it was going to happen. What did Rambo and Slam Pick? He said, if TK drops off a suitcase of cash and a duffel bag of White Claws, I think Tanahashi will go for it. He must be talking about the Takeshita thing. There's quite a few reasons. Jon Moxley would have to eat 2 to 4, somewhere between 2 and 4 losses in the tournament for it to work. So there's that. There's the aspect where they're in the middle of negotiating their TV rights deal and they're lacking for star power, and they already called him home early to be back on TV when he wasn't supposed to. So the idea that they're going to let him go for this length of time and eat those losses is highly unlikely. Plus, the grind and the liability that's put on, for him to wrestle that arduous schedule. And last time he did that, keep in mind, it was before he signed with AEW, and he got injured, and he had lagging, issues and injuries coming out of the G1 that he needed surgery for. So that could easily be exasperated. And then again, the fact that he is very likely dropping the title to Naito at Forbidden Door. So there's no need for him to be in the tournament because he's not going to be champion any longer. We're probably not going to see Moxley in New Japan again until Wrestle Kingdom, most likely. So with that being the case, it is interesting that they kind of have already shown their hand by telling us that the current world champion is not announced and not going to be in the G1. That pretty much is tipping the hat to the idea that he's dropping that title to Naito, and it's like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, and another small tip of the hat that they did was with the Capital Collision poster. Jon Moxley has been all over the U.S. show posters, and he was not announced or on the poster for Capital Collision in August. So I think that kind of shows you that he's not going to be champion. He's not going to be around till Dome season.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where we, time and time again, we say the company needs to produce a card, do advertising ahead of time, but it's double-edged because on the dog's getting food. It's double-edged because when there is something like this, like a title change coming up, and they don't want to let you know, but they also can't false advertise, what are they going to do? So it kind of sucks in that regard, but if you're paying attention, you can see the tea leaves.
Yeah. Well, we got a ton of questions here. Let's jump into them. First from Copper Squire. As we are bound to get your reactions to both the 18 chosen and the qualifier participants, do you have any disappointments of lack of certain people?
No, the only thing that I would say, I when you were talking, Jeremy, about the A side having the guys that you think are the most likely winners, not only is there that aspect, but the A block is also full of former and recent kayfabe world champions. Now, that doesn't mean that I necessarily think like Sonata and Evil and Naito are all going to be like top performers in the tournament, but just when it comes to optics, you've got most of the major stars in the A block, and the B block has a lot of top talent, but it's not nearly as full of stars or in the modern sense for the company. So that's a little surprising. I feel like maybe they should have evened that out a little bit.
Yeah, the A block does look a little bit more star heavy, and it's a LIJ block with Naito, Shingo, Sonata, Evil, current and former LIJ stars is there as well. Former world champions. You got Jake Lee, who's pushed as a top guy in Noah. So yeah, that block it does seem very top heavy, where the B block, you have a lot of guys that are normally kind of your upper mid carders, your Jeff Cobbs, your ELP, your HENAREs, Dave Finlay, those guys that haven't really cracked the main event yet. And then, Takeshita, I feel like is the one guy that is in Japan, a top star. He's a top guy in DDT, and he's done some DDT stuff this year that's drawn pretty well. He got great reactions at the All Together show. So I feel like the Japanese audience does see him as a star. So from a name perspective, he's kind of one of the bigger guys in that block. And then we just don't know who's going to come out of that the B qualifiers. The biggest name in the B qualifiers is Tanahashi. So if he is able to make it through, that does kind of help add some star power to that block.
Yeah, and when I first looked at the blocks, I thought they were pretty even. That was my first take on it, but I'm looking at it from match quality standpoint because I'm just thinking G1, we're getting bangers, bring on the stars, and I'm looking at I'm like, they're pretty even in terms of quality, and in fact, the B block might wind up being the better performing block in terms of entertainment. But then earlier today, someone pointed out to me the amount of like quote unquote stars, top guys that have had top runs in the A block. And then I start thinking more about it. I'm like, oh, I guess that A block is more star heavy, but that's not to, that's not for me to, try to say that they're going to have better matches or more intrigue, because I don't think that's the case yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys in that B block. Like Takeshita, I think he's going to have great matches every night. Tsuji, I think, is going to be great every night. Cobb is usually pretty great every night. And, ELP, he's going to really want to break out. So I think there's some guys there that will have some great matches. But, in the A block, if they get Ishii, I mean, they're going to have a ton of great matches on top of all the guys that they already have in there. So, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff to come. And, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who is a top 3 in that B block. Because I feel like with the top guys in all one block, it kind of opened up the room to really push maybe 3 new guys out of that B block group. So let's see. Moving on to the next question from Dr. Evil Lariat. He says the G1 is the strongest in years. Why would they not try to get Moxley in there?
Well, I kind of already gave my argument for why he's not in it. I can't say that they didn't try. Who's to say? We don't know that that's the case. Maybe they did. Maybe it was already, a foregone conclusion he's not going to be in it. I couldn't tell you whether or not there was an attempt made at all.
Yeah, you kind of went through the key reasons there. He also says, if I can manifest Jake Lee and Takeshita into G1, I can manifest Moxley still being IWGP champion. So as a favor to you guys, I'm going to manifest a Reiwa guy becomes the next IWGP champ. What would you rather I help you bring into NJPW?
I don't even know what that question is all over the place. So I guess he's asking us what we should ask him to manifest as the reality of New Japan. I don't know.
Yeah.
Rambo Slam picks a show to Umino.
Yeah, I mean, Umino, finally getting that push and getting into the title mix, I think would be cool. I don't know. I'm a Tsuji guy. I think the G in G1 stands for Gene Blast. So I would be very happy with Tsuji winning G1 and beating Naito in the Dome.
And see, for me, I'm at a point where I think all of those guys are going to get title runs one way or the other. And so I think timing is key. I think that it has more to do so with when they get the title, title opportunity, the title reign, and, can make the most impact and get the most bang for their buck by carrying the strap. That's what, matters to me more as opposed to who it is. It's when it is for those guys.
Yeah. Rainbow Sandbag asks, do you believe the playing tournaments are set up to give the rub to young guys like...
You skipped the question.
Whoops. Twitter follower at Pete0263983. Can and will Shingo not be a finalist? He's the best. The best. Shingo versus Takeshita would feed families. Well, not my family, because I'd call off work and lose my job just to watch.
That's one thing, we're getting Shingo and Naito again, which I'm not always keen as being the biggest Naito guy, but the last time those two guys locked up, it was an incredible match. And we've been waiting for years for them to lock horns again, and it's finally happening. And one thing too, Jeremy, I know you know this, but when you were lamenting several people being in the block with Naito, I don't know if you were taking into account that 3 people are going through. Very likely Naito will be one of those guys, but I think at least 2 of the 3 that you have predicted as being potential winners are also going through with him.
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I thought this in our group chat earlier. I mean, the 3 I said, Saber, Umino, and Shingo would be the 3 guys I pushed through. Like, I would do a 4-way tie of points between them and Naito, and then have one of them have a tiebreaker over Naito. Then I would put through Umino, Saber, and Shingo.
I was gonna say you're selling Naito a little bit short there, but then the scenario that you painted where it's a tiebreaker scenario kind of does make sense. The only thing with that is my argument: Naito needs to probably go through so that he can lose. I don't think he'll go in as it would happen one of 2 ways. Either he would be the 1A guy, right? And then whoever comes through beats him and then loses the tournament. And then they can do their, obligatory title match before the Dome at that point. But the more likely scenario is Naito goes through as one of the B2, B3 guys, loses that match, and then whoever beat him loses to the next guy, and then that guy wins the tournament. And I think that that's how they're going to set up his title challenge. He has to be in those top 3.
Yeah, my only problem with Naito advancing to the semifinals is then you're going to get a third matchup with somebody potentially for that Tokyo Dome main event, which I guess you could do a series of 3 matches and that would be different.
No. I'm saying that whoever beats him is not going to win the tournament. They're going to beat him. You're saying potentially they could.
Yeah, so if the winner's coming from the A block and he's in the semifinals, they might potentially wrestle him in the semifinals, win the tournament, and then that would be the third time they wrestle at Tokyo Dome.
No, I don't think that's happening. I think I personally think the person that beats him will be the one that gets the, third or fourth quarter title shot in October, like they always do. That person will not win the tournament because they'll get the title shot in October, and whoever else is in that block with them, it will probably be the guy that wins the whole thing.
Yeah. So now from Rambo and Sam Pig, do you believe the playing tournaments are set up to give the rub to young guys like Oleg Bolton, Callum Newman, etc., who may not get wins in the round robin tournament, but could get a key win during the play-in over veteran talent?
Potentially, yeah. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if the young guys did do well in the play-in. I think it is feasible that they could go through the whole, either one of them or even both of them could win the play-ins, but I'm not 100% sold on that. But yeah, since they're both in the opening round, I could see them winning their opening round match to kind of get a big win and then, maybe another win and then maybe they lose, that sort of thing. Hard to say, but there's a lot of compelling possibilities for who can come out of those blocks.
Yeah, I think it's a great way just to start to push them and get them in there with the established guys. And then, like you said, you could always set up stories with, guys that have to beat, the whole like Callum Ishii thing, like that's been the story. And maybe, Ishii becomes what he was for HENARE and Callum's now chasing Ishii. And maybe that's his story going forward. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can set up.
One thing too, Jeremy, and I know this is going to sound crazy, right? This is going to sound crazy. And we've been saying something like this for so many years, and it's never seemed possible. It's always seemed like this completely like out of left field thing that just could never happen. But what if, hear me out, Ishii's on the bubble. What if he fucking wins the play-in, gets in the B block? It's a lot easier to get into those top 3 spots in the tournament. What if he gets into one of those 3?
He's on the A side.
Oh, he's on the A side.
Yeah. So if he gets in, he'd be in with Shingo and Naito.
Okay. Even better. He gets in the A side. He gets one of those 3 spots. He wins the fucking G1. I know it sounds crazy, but they've done Cinderella runs before, right? Mm-hmm. What if they do Naito versus Ishii in the Dome and Ishii fucking wins the title? You know what I mean? Like the something that you just couldn't expect could ever happen. We're at a point right now in the booking of New Japan where they could be doing some very bold things that you don't expect them to do that is outside of the norm for Gedo. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but the possibility is on the table right now because really at the end of the day, it's Naito and whoever you think is going to beat Naito for the title. And they could always give Ishii that perfunctory gold watch run, the big moment. I think that would do business if they were like, he fucking won the G1. They push him all the way through. You never thought it would happen. And now it's like, do you believe in miracles? Like he gets like a Bryan Danielson or like a Kofi Mania opportunity at the title. Like how many people would be invested in that story? And how good would that match be? They could do that.
Yeah, that would be a great option. And, but as much as I love Ishii, I don't know if I want to go with that story versus trying to push somebody new that's going to be in the main event spot a little bit longer.
That's true. But at the same time, my thinking is if you did do something like that, then you can turn around and Ishii doesn't have to have a long title reign. He could be the guy that puts over whoever it is, whether it's Umino or Tsuji or Zack Sabre Jr., whatever. And then you still got the Naito versus the young guy match in your pocket for later on down the stretch. This is so unlikely, but that is the excitement that's presented from this play-in tournament is whoever's coming through, in my opinion, provided it's not one of the young guys or one of the no-hopers, they've got a compelling story that could propel them into the finals or the semifinals.
Yeah. Rainbow's other question, he says, prior to seeing the blocks, I would have guessed that Shota Umino and ZSJ were the top choices to win the G1, but if Naito is world champion, the odds of the winner coming out of his block, especially after a sudden death playoff, seem low. What are your thoughts on that? We kind of addressed that. Anything else?
I feel confident that the winner still comes from A block just because I don't see a strong marquee match outside of Naito and Tsuji, unless you're really sold on the idea of, Takeshita and Naito, and maybe that's the way that maybe that's how they sold Tony Khan sold them on giving them Takeshita. I don't know.
Yeah. Set of questions here from Def Triangle 720. Who do you think actually has a chance of winning the G1?
I think quite a few people, but I think the most likely individuals, in my opinion, are going to be Zack Sabre Jr. and Shota Umino.
Yeah, and then I would put like Shingo as a fringe guy. I think Tsuji is a fringe guy.
I really don't think Shingo's winning. Like they've beat it into my head that he's not that caliber in their booking anymore.
We'll see. He just dropped the Never title that could free him up.
You want this so bad.
What I really want is, Kojima to get that G1 run.
Mm-hmm.
He also asked, do you think it's a waste having Jake Lee in the tournament after he just lost to Naito?
He's going to probably get that win back over Naito, I would assume.
Yeah, I can see him getting a win over Naito and then them doing a third match in the fall, either at an all-together show or whatever the October-September show would be.
The one thing I did want to mention. So we, not that I think that this needed to be chock full of outsiders. Obviously it's a tight field, but I was a little surprised that the two we got were from just Noah and AEW as opposed to CMLL, especially considering the whole thing with, who is it? Soberano.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like supposed to be signed. We haven't seen him all year. He's like a heavyweight guy and he's not in the G1. They've done, they've had like La Sombra in the tournament before. So little surprised by that, but I mean, as far as Jake Lee goes, I don't know, man. I haven't seen enough of him to really make a clear determination. His reputation precedes him, and I can't say I'm super excited for him being in the tournament. If I had a choice of Noah guy, it wouldn't have been him. But there is the ongoing feud between him and Naito. They've been doing business together. Kind of makes a little bit of sense. He's tall. They like that. It is funny that they got like the two tallest Japanese stars that they could in Takeshita and Jake Lee. It's like they're trying to replace Okada, just looking for the tallest guys they can. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of with you. Like, I haven't seen enough of him to fully like give my final stamp of approval, but he hasn't really knocked my socks off the few times I have seen him now. So, I mean, would I have rather have just had Ishii in instead of Jake Lee? Yeah, but like you mentioned, there's a feud with Naito, and it does seem like he's potentially, jumping to New Japan.
There's also the thing where Katsuhiko Nakajima is a freelancer and outsider, and he's unsigned. And I know that he recently is showing up in GLEAT. I don't know how long that deal is for, but he was a guy that I was kind of hoping, like, man, the excitement if they brought him in, but I don't know. I don't think anyone wants to fucking work with him. So
yeah. Daft Angle also asks, do you think Takeshita could make it to the quarterfinals in the tournament?
I think he will. I think he definitely will, just because in the past when we had AEW guys, they've always done well in the G1, and in the most recent tournaments, they've been the 4 block So they've had to take like only one loss or two losses at most to really make it worth their while. But with Takeshita, he's not going to eat a ton of losses, and he's probably going to like go far. When there's 3 spots, it's almost a foregone conclusion that he's going to be one of those guys. He could even, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the block leader and goes in as 1B and then loses to the guy that goes to the finals.
Yeah, I could definitely see him being a 6-3 guy and really dominating that block and getting knocked out in the quarters. But I definitely think he's going to be one of those top 3 in the B block.
Bro, I could see him going like 6-2-1 or 7-2.
Yeah, it's possible.
Easily.
Yeah.
Like, and then he loses the third match in the semifinals to kind of get him out of there.
Yeah. With the heavy tag champions not in the tournament, who could be their next challengers that are not named Bishamon?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I really don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't really have a team in mind to face TMDK.
And since they're not in the tournament, you're not setting up the next challengers. I wonder, I mean, they're not on this tour, right? Shane Hayes, Nichols?
Maybe they'll be on undercards teaming with Zach. We don't have the full, undercards of the cards yet, so maybe they'll do that. But as far as I know, they're at least not scheduled as far as I know right now.
Yeah, you kind of have to wonder if they're going to be on the Soul Tour to kind of set things up. I know there is a Tamashi show that's scheduled for in the middle of G1 Climax. Who knows if that ever makes tape or whatever. Capital Collision is coming up. Maybe that's a potential.
Well, they're advertised for that show.
Okay. And I wonder if that will be a title defense of some sort. I don't know. It's a tough one to really. I wish I had a better answer for you. I just don't know who their next challengers could be.
They did. They were on an 8-man tag on Collision this past Saturday against the Blackpool Combat Club. So maybe it'll be 2 of those guys.
I don't watch that shit.
He asked which 2 guys should qualify for the G1.
Oh, from the play-in. That's a tough one. I mean, geez. Okay, so I'll say this. From the A block, if you're just talking pure excitement, like the guys that are going to have the best matches, it's going to be Ishii, Yoshihashi, or Callum Newman. The tried and true is Ishii. Like, and it's still, even considering everything, considering how hard Yoshihashi works, considering how much promise Callum Newman has, the proof is in the pudding. I can't deny that Ishii is still one of the top performers in the G1 year over year, even last year, even with his body breaking down and him aging. Like, so if it was just down to match quality, for me in the A block, it's Ishii. In the B block, I would have to go with Taichi. I think Taichi's the best current performer, in the heavyweight ranks out of everybody in that block when it just comes. And plus, he matches up so well with a lot of the guys in the B block. Those would be like your most exciting work rate picks. And there's also pretty cool narratives for both of them. But I kind of feel like I think we might end up with Callum Newman and Ishii in the A block qualifier anyways, just because of them teasing the match and they're on opposite sides. And then I think we're going to get Taichi beating TJP versus it could literally be any one of those 3. Like, it could be Yano.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you thinking, Jeremy? Like, who do you think should be the guy that comes out of these blocks?
I don't know. I mean, the longtime New Japan fan of me says Ishii and Tanahashi. I mean, right. It's kind of weird not having a G1 with either of those guys. They've been the G1 since we've been doing this show. But yeah, also from a work rate standpoint, I do think Ishii and Callum from the A side would be the best bet. And I agree. I think that's going to be the finals there. And you you have two choices there. Do you give Callum that big win and throw him in the deep end in that A block, or do you go with the tried and true and you give Callum a great match, but then Ishii goes through and then Ishii goes in there and kills it with everybody. So I would go Ishii or Callum there, and then in the B block, I kind of feel like they're telling a story of like Boltin and Callum kind of being on the same level. So I could see it end up being like Boltin and Taichi, and then it could be a similar situation where do you go with Boltin, throw him in the deep end, or you go with a tried and true guy like Taichi?
Well, okay, so here's my question with that. Obviously, Yano can beat anybody on any day of the week, but Oleg Boltin would be totally perfectly fine beating Yano. But then he's got to beat Tanahashi, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he beats Tanahashi,
he should probably win, right?
Then he should probably just win and go into the G1, because what does that do for everybody if he just beats Tanahashi, but he doesn't even qualify for the G1? Sure, he gets a big win, and maybe that's the feather in his cap, but I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense. Given the fact that it's Tanahashi, and I know that, I get it that there's this thing where Callum Newman and Oleg Boltin is somewhat, kind of equals. They're kind of not. I mean, Callum Newman's been wrestling a lot longer. He's a lot further along in his career. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Tanahashi and Taichi in the B block finals, even though they're both the guys with the buys. I think that just makes sense. They're the two highest performing, from point total standpoints and single records in the company in that B block qualifier. And then I could see either one of them going in, whether it's, I kind of think it should be Taichi and Ishii still.
Yeah, that's probably your overall best bet. And I feel with Tanahashi's the state of his body and his age and taking on more of an office role, like you mentioned, I think it's a compelling story if he's out, and then you get him to rest his body for a month, and then you tell this whole story of like, all right, I was in the G1. How the heck do I get on Tokyo Dome now? Like, I'm not going to be in the main event. Like, what do I do? Like, am I defending the Never Six Mans? Am I in the Battle Royal now? You have this whole like meltdown, like, midlife crisis storyline of him trying to find a spot in the Dome. And then all of 2025 is him trying to get back in the G1.
Yeah, it's a crisis of identity at that point for sure. I mean, on the one hand too, you kind of have to imagine that not too far from now, Tanahashi will be doing his final G1. I think we've already gotten the, miracle run from Tanahashi in the G1. That's never happening again. So he's not ever going to win this thing, but we'll probably get the final G1 run of Tanahashi. And in the past, especially in modern New Japan times, Nagata, Tenzan, they both got final runs well before they ever were close to retirement. So I don't think Tanahashi's anywhere near retirement, but now might be the time for him to have a final G1 run. And it's hard for me to imagine that they make that announcement coming off of a B block play-in qualifier. I feel like if they were just going to do that, he wouldn't be trying to qualify. They would have just made the announcement and he would just be in. So maybe him losing and not getting in is the better story, because then the next year he can get in and make that announcement. It's his final run, blah, blah, blah. You made a good point about Tanahashi's body. What about Ishii?
Bro, I haven't seen that man slow down though. Like
I agree, but there's a lot of talk about whether his body can handle another G1, especially this style G1, because it's more matches than the last few. And so you kind of have to wonder if it is a situation where this is a great excuse to give him an out from having to be in the tournament. He was in the play-ins, he didn't qualify, he lost to a Callum Newman or a Kenta, and it just didn't, it didn't work out or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, so far, like I haven't watched an Ishii match this year and been like, damn, he's washed or he's moving slow or that wasn't crisp. I'm like, he still goes hard.
I would agree, but I do think that he's slowed a step. I mean, he's still able to do the Ishii match and everything like that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like when Suzuki a few years ago was like, damn, we're like, Suzuki is still Suzuki. Now he's not, but 4 or 5 years ago, we're like, fuck, like he's old, he's beat up, but he's still doing it. And, you know, in a certain sense, Ishii does it at a higher level than even that when it comes to just pure physicality and work rate. So for me, I'm going to stick with I wouldn't be surprised if Callum Newman does get through, but I think it should be Ishii and Taichi. I think that there's something weird going on with Taichi giving the looks. I think that's leading to something. I think maybe he's the one with the most compelling story to get in. And then with Ishii, my only misgiving, I'm kind of picking him more for pure, like, he's just going to put on the best matches and everything like that. But I don't know if they go with him in any meaningful way coming out of the qualifier, and you want the qualifier to mean something. So I would love if they did put him through that it was some sort of Cinderella run, but that's highly unlikely. Yeah. If it's not him, I think Callum Newman makes a lot of sense, but you kind of imagine Callum Newman would just mainly be there to probably eat a lot of pinfalls.
Right. Yeah. He'd probably end up being like a 1-8 guy if he gets through, kind of thing. Def Wrangle's last question. Do you think if Bolton wins a qualifier, he'll actually no longer be a young lion?
Well, we've already had that discussion about whether he is or isn't at this point, so hard to say.
Yeah. Discord Daddy MJ says, I still believe Ishii will make this year's G1. He had a little stare down with Callum at the end of their match at Seoul to likely set up for a match. However, if we don't get Ishii in another G1, can you reflect on his importance to the tournament over the years? And is he one of the greatest G1 competitors of all time?
I'm pretty much at the point where I think that Tomohiro Ishii is the greatest competitor just per capita in G1 history. He doesn't get the love for that. Maybe the records, you know, the win-loss record doesn't reflect it. But when it just comes down to who has the best matches every year, if it's not him, he's like number 2. Many years he's like 1A, 1B with guys like Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, Will Ospreay, Shingo Takagi, shit like that. And this has been going on for over a decade. So, you know, you're talking about the best tournament in all of wrestling during the hottest period of the company, during the best renaissance period of quality of wrestling. And he is the one guy that's putting on the most incredible matches of anybody in the entirety of the tournament. The only person I think that gives him a little bit of a run for his money is like Kota Ibushi, and he even started to peter out his last tournament or two, and Ishii's still doing it, and it doesn't make sense. He's the fucking man. Like, he's that guy. He's maybe the greatest competitor in G1 history.
Yeah, Ishii is incredible. We've seen so many great Ishii G1 matches. Yeah, definitely going to go down as the greatest G1 competitor, pound for pound, star for star. It's going to be sad if he doesn't get in. It's going to be, the end of an era. Really kind of that passing of the torch if Ishii is not in there. Like I said, he doesn't get the love that he probably should get for these performances. I think we kind of take him for granted. I think for years people will go back and watch. You can pull up any year G1, and there's so many bangers of him and Shibata.
Can you, Jeremy? Can you pull up any G1? I don't even know if you can still do that with the fucking website or the fucking app.
Well, I haven't tried recently, but there are other sites that might help you out. If you go back to any Ishii G1, him Shibata, him Goto, him Shingo, like him Okada, him Ibushi, him Taichi, you go through year G1 to just instant classics.
Mm-hmm.
His other question: after seeing the blocks and play in tournament brackets, are you more or less bullish on the tournament as a whole? Any surprises on the guys on the outside looking in?
Great question. I mean, I feel like I've touched on all of that a little bit at this point, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I'm pretty excited for the tournament. I think it's going to be, a tournament that New Japan really needs to kind of pick some steam up. And I think it's kind of ballsy on some of the guys they left out, like Ishii and Tanahashi and Taichi. I think those were ballsy moves, and it's going to be interesting to see who gets through. Less Commission 7252. Do you guys think there are too many free spots when revealing the block? guys like Jake Lee, HENARE, Great Okan, and Narita, to me, didn't deserve the spots due to the lack of performance or poor performances. To replace those four, I would have put Yoshihashi, Josh Alexander from TNA, Masa Kitamiya from Noah, and Drilla Manoni. I hope they choose these wrestlers from a 1-year performance period.
I will say this. I was a little bit surprised that Great Okan was automatically in the tournament and didn't have to qualify via play-in. I wonder if he hadn't have won in a kayfabe sense, if he hadn't have won the KOPW, if he wouldn't have been on the outside looking in. So that one's interesting. But HENARE, I would not kick HENARE out. HENARE, HENARE is like, he just won the fucking Never title and came back from everything. That's kind of crazy. Narita's one of the Reiwa guys. They made a concerted effort to put all 4 Reiwa guys in the tournament. And I think that's a really good move. Jake Lee, I understand some people have some hesitancy about him being the guy, but he, is a name of some value. How much value that is debatable. But, we can't have everything that we want in life less commission. So, as much as I would love to see Josh Alexander and Masa Kitamiya in here, and I understand, Yoshihashi's on the outside looking in, trying to play in. Like, it's just, a lot of people are always going to have issues with a 20-man tournament with the inclusions and exclusions, but it is what it is. I think by and large, they did a really good job personally.
Yeah. Rambone says that Okan should have had to eat a bag of lemons or something to qualify.
I mean, if they did that, he would win. We know he's good at that.
Yeah. Out of the guys that he mentioned, like I would say Jake Lee's like the only one where I'm like, I could take him or leave him. I would have locked in Ishii instead of Jake Lee, but they're clearly doing something there with him. There's a story to tell. Yeah, HENARE, I think, is definitely a guy that's a lock. I feel like Okan and Narita, from a kayfabe sense, are probably the 2 guys you can kind of be like, what did they really do this year? I mean, Narita did get a world title match, and then Okan's just kind of been in KLPW. But, I mean, I think those are your future guys that you want in the mix going forward. He also asked, do you guys think Takeshita is worthy enough to be booked into the finals? I know in the last All Together review, I recall that both of y'all liked him more than Umino and prefer him to be the ace of New Japan. The decision of booking him to the finals against Zack will be fresh and new for a G1 final. This could potentially be the first time since 2012 that we have seen 2 new faces in the G1 finals. The last 2 were Kazuchika Okada and Carl Anderson.
I would be a bit surprised if they did an outsider going into the finals of the G1. It would be a great match. Don't get me wrong. And I wouldn't complain that much about it, but I feel very confident that Takeshita is not heading to the Dome main event. And so it would somewhat make the outcome of that match a foregone conclusion and make it a bit of a formality. And in that sense, it might not be as exciting. But you just never know. Maybe they do something like that. It's been a long time since New Japan has had an outsider from a rival group go to the finals of the G1. I mean, the last one I really can recall is like when oh man, Chris made us watch this match, but it was like Tenzan versus it might have been Jun Akiyama in like 2004 or something like that. Maybe there's been others. I can't recall all off the top of my head, but it's not very traditional for New Japan to put an outside guy in the finals. It makes all the sense in the world for them to have those same stars that they're trying to build healthy relationships go far in the tournament, maybe be in the top 3 spots, but I doubt that they would put him in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, if it happened, I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's definitely a semifinal guy at the least. But yeah, I'm excited about the fact that we are potentially going to get a fresh final and get some new faces in there.
Speaking about what you said earlier, I don't think that either of us were actually lobbied for Takeshita to be the definitive ace of New Japan. What we remarked about was the star presence that he had and the quality of his work and his look as compared to the other 5 men in that All Together show. And there's a stark, comparison there. And I did joke that New Japan got the wrong one, but that's not to say that I think that he would be a true success as the ace, because while I am a fan of Takeshita and I think that he's very impressive, I don't know if he would connect on that level where he could be a draw or where he has the right kind of charisma to really establish himself as a top draw in New Japan. Maybe he does. I'm not saying he doesn't. I just don't. We haven't seen that yet, so it's hard for me to say like he's the guy we should go with when I haven't seen him work enough in Japan, especially in the New Japan context, to claim that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great young guy, and I mean, also I think Umino and Tsuji are great as well. But yeah, just in that match, he just came off like a bigger deal. He just carried himself like a star, top guy, and I think there's stuff that Umino and Tsuji and Uemura and Narita, that's just something that they still need to learn and kind of develop that kind of aura around them. Where Takeshita had that, and I just think he'd be a great guy to have on a roster on New Japan that's looking for stars.
Well, one thing I will say, I don't think Tsuji was in that match.
He wasn't. I'm just, lumping him in as like a future, ace guy.
We're going to see them go head to head on the first night. And I got a feeling that we're not going to be worried about Tsuji not projecting star presence on that night. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed in that moment personally.
Yeah. Hawaiian Punch VV, do you think that Jake Lee is NJPW bound? He always wanted to be in the G1, which he now is. He didn't sign a contract with Noah in hopes of NJPW potentially signing him down the line. And similar question with Barry Walsh, with the news of Jake Lee disbanding GLG and Noah, and also the comments Gabe Kidd made saying he didn't mind Jake, but if it was up to him, he wouldn't bother with the rest of GLG. Do you think it's likely he will stay in New Japan after the G1 or join shortly after?
I haven't heard anything specific about this, but I wouldn't be surprised just given the nature of things right now. On the one hand, you could say, oh, well, they don't want to upset their partner. But then, just recently they had Gabe Kidd headlining a show where on the same night they're announcing working relationships with WWE and bringing in AJ Styles to work a match with Marufuji. So, we're seeing the cracks between these unions, and the UJPW thing just seems like it's falling apart, little by little. And a lot of people kind of said that was the case. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jake Lee did make his way to New Japan. A little bit of the Tony Khan / Vince McMahon thing there, oh, send over some of your top guys. We'll give them a little bit of a little bit of exposure,
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I feel like you sign I feel like the tea leaves are there. Yeah. GLG breaking up this feud with Naito out of nowhere. It does seem like, like you said, they want another tall guy on the roster and they found one. So I think that could be happening.
Plus they just lost Hikuleo, or should I say Tala Tonga?
Which Tonga? The Tala one.
The Tala one. They lost Tala Tonga, so they needed another tall guy,
Yeah.
I personally, I mean, who knows? Maybe signing Jake Lee maybe it'll be good. Maybe he needs a fresh coat of paint. Maybe it'll be a good change of scenery. Maybe the things that people have said they see in him could be brought to the forefront here, but I don't know if I see that working personally.
Yeah. So they did announce some of the featured matches for all the nights. So night 1, July 20th, Osaka's going to be a double block night. We're going to have Shingo Takagi versus Tetsuya Naito from the A block, Yota Tsuji versus Konosuke Takeshita from the B block. Night 2, the 21st, also a double block night. We're going to have Naito versus Sabre, Goto versus Yuya Uemura. Night 3 on the 23rd, A block night. We're going to have Naito and Jake Lee, and a bonus B block match with Jeff Cobb versus Takeshita. Night 4, B block, we got ELP versus Yota Tsuji. Night 5, A block, we got Tetsuya Naito versus Evil. Night 6 in Fukuoka, B Block, Hanare versus Takeshita. Night 7 in Fukuoka, July 29th, Umino versus Sabre. Night 8, July 31st in Yamaguchi, B Block, Hanare versus Yu Uemura. Night 3 in Osaka from the A Block, Night 9, August 3rd in Osaka from the A Block, we have Shingo versus Sabre. Night 10, August 4th, Hanare versus Jeff Cobb. Night 11, August 6th, we got Gabe Kidd versus Jake Lee in Korakuen. Night 12, August 7th, also in Korakuen and B Block, Uemura versus Ren Narita. Night 13, August 8th in Yokohama, we got ZSJ and Gabe Kidd. Night 14, August 10th in Sendai, we got Tsuji versus Uemura. Night 15, August 12th in Nagoya, we got Naito versus Great Okan. Night 16, August 14th, we got Tsuji versus Jeff Cobb. And then night 17, August 15th, that will be the A2 versus A3 and B2 versus B3 matches. And then August 17th in Ryogoku, we'll have the semifinals. And then August 18th, my birthday, we will have the G1 finals.
You keep throwing out there that it's your birthday. It's almost like you're hinting to everybody that we need to remember that the finals is your birthday.
I'm saying it's going to be a great day to celebrate another, year of life for me. G1 final. It's going to be a fun day.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say something, but it was kind of dark and morbid, so I won't say it.
Were you going to say, would I even make it?
Oh, okay. So this is something crazy. It's just off topic. I listened to another podcast that I really like called the King Cast, and it's these two guys, part of the Fangoria network, and they bring on guests. They talk about Stephen King, everything from books, movies, adaptations, all that sort of shit. And I've been listening to it like since around the start of the pandemic, like for a long time, bro. And they're young dudes. They're like not as young as us, but I mean, like they're in their like late 30s, early 40s. One of the dudes just died. He just died.
Damn.
Natural causes. Nobody bro. It caught me so off guard, and I was like, on the one hand, like it's really sad. The show's going to be wrapping up. They're working on getting stuff worked out. If you guys never listen, if you like Stephen King, you never listen to Kingcast, I would highly recommend it. It's really good. But I was thinking like, what the fuck would we do if like one of us just tragically passed away? Like how would this shit work?
Yeah, it'd probably be the end.
We never even think about like ending this shit. We just every week here we are doing it.
Going forever.
At some point, we're gonna not be able to do it. I would assume, right?
I don't know. Dave still be doing it.
But yeah, it's pretty sad. Moving on, we still got 3 more matches to review on the Soul card.
Yep. So we had the Never Openweight title match, and we have a new Never champion. Henare finally defeats Shingo Takagi 18 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah, so I really liked this match quite a bit, and I was looking at the cage match scores like I mentioned earlier, and I was surprised this wasn't higher than it was. They've got a 7.33, so it's like sitting at like 3.5, 3 3/4, like 3.5, maybe, or maybe like 3 1/4. And I don't know. I'm a little surprised by that. What were your thoughts, Jeremy? Was this a match that you liked, or why do you think the perception is people didn't receive it all that well?
I think part of it might just being a rematch coming so quickly after the Dominion match. I think a lot of people like me were upset that Henare didn't just win in Osaka. I think it just made more sense to do that, and you could have done the rematch here. Plus, I think the Sapporo crowd was a little bit quiet compared to some other crowds we've seen all the rest of the year. I mean, they were definitely cheering and stuff, but they just weren't super loud and vibrant like some other crowds have been for this particular matchup. And plus, this was a long show as well. I think people were more excited about the G1 announcements. I think there's just a lot of factors working against this match. But I mean, overall, I thought the match was great. I don't think it was as great as the Dominion match or some of the other matches they've had in the past, but I'm still like low for like 4 1/4 on it. I do think that now that we've seen the result, I do think it was a little bit of bad booking to just not have HENARE win at Dominion in Osaka, the same city where he split his head, on the second biggest show of the year, with that great crowd. I think it would have been a more meaningful win versus here, where like it just didn't feel as special. Also, it's a big deal, his first singles championship, beating Shingo in a big match. It was a great moment for him, but I feel like Dominion would have been a bigger moment, would have established him more, instead of just kind of throwing it here, 8th match on this Seoul card.
Okay. So you're the booker, devil's advocate. They do that. So what do you do for Seoul the next week? Do you just not have him in a title match, maybe put him on the undercard in a tag match? Do you have someone come out and challenge him? Do you have them run it back and he beats Shingo twice clean? Like, what would your answer there have been?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go the Shingo route, yeah, I would just have them do, a backstage thing where he's like, hey, that was a great match. You beat me. I want to run it back next week in Sapporo. And HENARE being like, okay. And then, yeah, I would have had him beat Shingo again to really establish him as a player, as this, never open weight guy. He's going to be the new face of Never. I think that would have been a great move. Or, yeah, you could have easily had anybody walk out in that kind of Never style. Maybe, you have Goto walk out, Yoshihashi. You have somebody walk out, Ishii. We know that their history. You have one of those guys walk out and be like, all right, you're the new Never champ. Let's run it next week in Sapporo.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I don't think I personally am quite as bothered by them holding off on pulling the trigger here. In the same respect, you could have questions about them flipping the Never title back and forth and that being a little bit questionable. Same thing here. So it is what it is, but I think that I liked this match a bit more just because they did have a little bit more time to kind of play into the story. They definitely had some callbacks and teases to the knockout spot from the prior match, which I thought was nice. And it was a feel-good moment to see HENARE get the big win. The one thing I do agree with you, I feel like there might have been a better reception to the win. The win might have meant more, whereas like with this crowd, they didn't seem to be quite as enthused or invested, which kind of does suck. But big accomplishment for HENARE, first major title win. It feels like a huge stepping stone for him in his career trajectory. Someone we've been following since his Young Lion days, and kind of historic. He's the first like Maori person of that descent to hold a title in New Japan. So, diversity, inclusion, the more you know. Two things I did think about though, while these matches are incredibly hard hitting and physical, I started to think about like the type of Haas style matches that we've seen that are more indicative of like the big Japan style, or like that kind of defined All Japan there for a couple of years on the outside, the big, really hard hitting like Haas, lariats and kicks and that sort of thing. And it's like New Japan's not lacking in that 100%, but this isn't quite that style. Even though it is physical, it's still very New Japan in their delivery. And maybe for some fans, it's not quite hitting that high level of physicality that some of those other more hard hitting, like, the types of matches that like Daisuke Sekimoto or like, I don't know. There's a bunch of names you could list that are out there. Like that type of style of match isn't necessarily happening here. The other thing too, I did think about, while this series of matches was very good, it didn't come near the level of quality that these two men had with one another in their trio of matches last year. And maybe that's part of it as well. The fact that there's a high bar for them considering the heights they've reached. And so they're kind of judged against themselves.
Yeah, that could be it. I mean, that you go back to that Ultimate Triad match. That was just an absolute war. And I don't know. I mean, I thought they were hitting each other pretty hard in this match. I mean, HENARE's kicks sound deadly. They sound off, and he was really doing a number on Shingo's arm with the kicks throughout the match. And so, yeah, I mean, I thought they were hitting each other very hard. It just didn't feel. It almost felt like in a way like they were trying too hard. I guess it just didn't happen naturally like it did in the past, and I think that maybe that was the deal. But I mean, overall, I still think it was a great match. I would recommend people watch it, and it's a great moment for HENARE.
Yeah, but there's like guys like Yuji Okabayashi and like Daisuke Sakamoto and all those guys. There's a bunch of them, like Fuminari Abe, like the big Japan guys, and I don't know who was like the Suwama, like in his heyday, like those big burly dudes that are outside of New Japan that just beat the fuck out of each other in their matches, and that is something that's kind of like lacking a little bit in modern wrestling. And like, yeah, New Japan still does have physicality and they are still hitting, but it's very much a New Japan house style. It's not that classic pro, I'm going to beat your ass sort of wrestling that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that could also be part of it.
Yeah. So yes, HENARE gets the big win. This is a celebration towards the end there, which led into the IWGP Global Heavyweight title match where we had the Rebel David Finlay successfully defending the title against Sonata of Just Five Guys in 25 minutes and 31 seconds.
Okay. I'm not going to say, I don't want to like be too hyperbolic and say like that I thought this match was blow away or anything, because it wasn't quite that, but I really liked this match a lot more than I thought I was going to. Especially considering I'm not necessarily the biggest Sonata or David Finlay fan. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, that I could be pretty critical on both of their work, but they just gelled together in a very cohesive way. I thought that a lot of the work from David Finlay that we have thrown out there in the past, where we're like, this is the stuff that we do like from him. A lot of that was on display, the physicality, the playing up to the crowd, the hard-hitting heel nature of things. And then Sonata, I don't know, man, like he might not be a great champion, but he's a great chaser. Like he is a good chaser. And when he's put in that baby face, chasing position from underneath, he wrestles better that way than he does as a champion. And the crowd really did get behind Sonata in this match for whatever reason. I don't know if there's a special connection to Sonata with this town or what have you, but they wanted to see him win the white strap. And there was just a lot of fluidity here. I liked the style of wrestling. I thought that they had a lot of good cohesive chemistry here. And then a lot of great near falls down the stretch. And David Finlay is a heel that can win mostly clean in a convincing manner, and you hate him for it, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought this match was pretty good. I would say probably one of my only complaints is I feel like Finlay is just talking a little bit too much in the match. Yeah, it's kind of teetering the line of like bloodline, monologue in the middle of the match. Roman Reigns, Jey Uso kind of stuff. It's funny. My wife was in the room when I was watching this match, and she's like, "Is this guy's gimmick? He just talks the whole match." It's like he's so annoying. Which I guess at one point,
did she call it a gimmick?
Yeah. Which at one point I guess it's getting heat. It's annoying, but at one point I'm like, it's as Rambo says, it's a little too cinema. It's teetering that line for me. But other than that, I thought this was a pretty good match and a good match to really reestablish David Finlay with the whole Nick Nemeth stuff this year and get him back on track. And remembering that he's the guy that took out Will Ospreay, took out Jay White, and was a top guy that they're pushing. So that was good there. And then people Sonata, like they mentioned on commentary, 2024 has been a rough year for him, losing the title in Tokyo Dome. He just had a concussion, and they play up that story too. That Finlay's working ahead. He could try and give him another concussion. So I feel like this whole like kind of comeback story for Sonata, and he was very vocal in a lot of the pre-match comments about the importance of this global title and trying to make this his year and stuff like that. And so definitely seems like they're kind of really trying again with Sonata. And so he'll probably be a player come G1. But yeah, I thought he looked good in this matchup here, but ultimately he fell to that cross strike knee, and Dave Finlay got the win.
Yep. I thought it was a good match. And then the main event.
Yeah, the main event for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. We have a new champion as El Desperado defeats Show in a steel cage match.
Yeah, and I was a little disappointed in the apparatus they used because it was the exact same cage that they used earlier this year in February for the or maybe it was March, I don't recall. I think it was February for the dog pound cage match that we saw between United Empire and the Bull Club War Dogs. And in that case, with it being on the outside of the ring and it kind of being quote unquote a dog pen, I thought it really matched the nature of what they were going for, considering how many bodies were going to be in the ring and everything like that. And then they kind of marketed this as just a straight standard cage match. So I assumed we were getting a traditional steel cage on the apron of the ring, and they just busted out the same fucking cage they used earlier this year, which it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but that cage is so low. You know, if the whole idea is keeping out the interference from House of Torture guys, like it's got big gaping holes in it. It's not that hard to scale. You know, so there's that going for it. One thing I did like, though, I liked that they got rid of the apron entirely and emptied the entirety of what was underneath it. There was no tables and you know, toolboxes and tape and shit like that under there. And it really kind of it did two things. Number one, it made you realize like House of Torture is not hiding under this ring. We're not going to get them, you know, popping out from underneath. And it also kind of emphasized the cage itself, because you're not going to be calling "we want tables" in a situation where you can clearly see under the ring and there's no fucking weapons. You know, there's nothing. Like they have to go man to man and fight in a cage.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this match was really long. It's 28 minutes, 57 seconds, and it feels like Show is getting a ton of heat on Desperado. I was like, man, at one point it was like the 10-minute call. Like, this match has only been 10 minutes. Feels like it's been going on for 20. And you did have, you know, House of Torture trying to come out, and then Despy was like throwing chairs out of the cage to them, and eventually you had the Hantai crew and Tanahashi and Bolton and Yano coming out there to fight those guys off and drag those guys back. And Despy had the mask grip and bleeding a little bit. And I don't know.
I thought that might be a blood packet. I know that, like, at first I thought he was trying to blade, but I think he might have like there was blood on his hand, and then he like didn't actively bleed from his head again. And I'm like, did they try to use a fucking blood packet? I think they might have. Either that or he botched a blade job, but not in the good way, but like in the bad way where like he barely got any color and he just cut his hand.
Right. Or maybe it was like a slight hard way where it didn't like open up enough to be dripping.
Well, his hand had like blood on it, so I don't know if he cut his finger or if I do kind of suspect that they didn't want a blade and that it might have been a blood packet. You know, full disclosure, Jeremy, I was in and out during this match. I just couldn't keep my eyes awake. Like, yeah, and it's funny because a steel cage match is pretty much my favorite gimmick that's out there, and they're so rare in New Japan. And I thought at first the match started out pretty good, and we even saw, I wouldn't go as far as to say the old Show, because it wasn't the old Show, but we did see him, you know, actually work a bit. which he doesn't typically do in his matches. We did see, but his offense has regressed so much over the years. It's nowhere near the level of what it was, but he got beat up a lot on the outside, was getting thrown around. But then when it turned around and he was getting his heat spot, like you said, it just went on and on and on and on. And like, yeah, we didn't get a ton of house torture bullshit, but we got some. You know, they're trying to hand in the wrench and they're trying to throw in chairs and ref distraction, shit like that. And I don't know. Like, this didn't work for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was just happy when it was over. Happy that Desperado won. He's a champion. We can get back on track with this junior division.
You know, what's funny too is like I was listening to a show where they were talking about the Rainbow Slam Pick said the yen is down. How many cages you want them to buy? I was listening to a show where they were talking about like the influence of Desperado and his status in the company, and kind of alluding to the idea that right now he is a bigger star than like Hiromu ever was at any point. And I just don't think that's true at all. Like, I remember what it was like when Hiromu came back from excursion that first year. And it was like, we've never seen a fucking junior like this. Like, he was a big, in fact, Hiromu, up until the time that he broke his neck, and not saying he wasn't a star when he returned, but like that whole time frame before he broke his neck, like it was like, shit, this is our generation's like Liger, you know? And I still think he's kind of that. I like Desperado. I think he is a great star and everything. I don't think that he has achieved that status personally to be like where Hiromu was in his top heyday, you know?
Yeah, I think he's kind of getting there. He's definitely also built a great fan base, great following. Also, the Despy Mania shows went over pretty well with people, and some of the other produce shows he's done in the past, those Takataichi Manias that he's been a part of, and some of the Jun Kasai stuff. I think there's definitely a big following there for him. I wouldn't say that he's, you know, accomplished the popularity that Hiromu has, and maybe we need to do some more analytics there, but he's definitely a star. I just don't know if I would say like, oh man, he's surpassed Hiromu.
Yeah, well, when he starts having like half the crowd out there with, you know, his own doll, then maybe we could talk, you know.
Yeah, when the whole crowd's wearing his mask, well, you know.
Right. But, you know, Desperado is champion once again, which is a good move in the right direction, even though Show these days is not looking like a junior, like physically whatsoever. He's clearly a heavyweight, but this is a marked improvement over having Show as champion. And you know, I don't know if this needed to be a cage match. Probably, I don't know. I can't tell if it would have been better as a cage match or not, but they headlined, they did an okay number, did some business.
Yeah. But the most exciting news, as Despy's doing his closing promo and celebrating, our man Doki comes out and challenges Desperado for the junior title. So Doki's next on deck. So that's coming up on the New Japan Soul Tour here. So it will be Desperado defending against Doki. We're also going to have Naito, Shingo, and Bushi versus Tsuji, Hiromu, and Teton. So LIJ versus LIJ. The quarterfinal of the block tournaments will be happening. Also, Risuke Taguchi's return match. And we have a question here from Dragon Master Adam. It says the booking of New Japan has sped up in the past weeks with a big show just a week after Dominion, and then another junior title match on July 5th. Do you think this is them fitting stuff in before G1, or a more deliberate effort to make the schedule more interesting in general?
I think it's been some good booking, yeah. I don't want to, you know, throw too much their way and you know, say they've turned the company around and everything like that, because that's not the case. But it's a positive step in the right direction. And coming off of the heels of Tanahashi's address, you have to assume that it's probably in line with some sort of creative vision or direction or company directive, which is good.
Yeah, I think there might have been some of this plans already, because they went out of the way to rename this tour. Traditionally, it's New Japan Road, or sometimes Casino Road, and They went out of their way to make it New Japan Soul, a whole brand new tour, a new name, and kind of spice it up. So maybe there was already plans. So like, all right, let's make this an important tour.
I knew it wasn't just Seoul. Kazuna Road. That's what I was thinking of. Oh man. So anyways, we have several nights of New Japan Soul that will be airing here in the near future. So night 4 is coming up Saturday, June 22nd from the Fukushima National Athletic Commemoration Gymnasium, live in English. No, Japanese commentary will be live, and then English will be on demand. So hopefully not too long after. The opening match, we've got Daiki Nagai versus Masatoru Yasuda, rematch for the Young Lions there. Second match of the night, Katsuya Murashima and Shoma Kato take on the United Empire's Francesco Akira, Great Okan. Third match of the night, we got Kojima, Hanma, and Ishii taking on United Empire's Henare, Jeff Cobb, and TJP. Fourth match of the night, Tanahashi, Yano, El Desperado, Goto, and Oleg Boltin take on all 5 members of Just 5 Guys. And then fifth match of the night, we have the G1 Climax 34 Block A qualifier as Yujiro Takahashi takes on Callum Newman. Sixth match of the night, Block A qualifiers, Yoshihashi takes on Chase Owens. And then your main event, LIJ, Bushi, Naito, and Teton, along with Tsuji, taking on the House of Torture's Evil, Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi. And then the next night, June 23rd on Sunday from Kamisu Bosai Arena, same deal, Japanese commentary live, English on demand. We have 8 matches. The opener is Desperado and Shoma Kato versus Just 5 Guys, Doki and Yuya Uemura. Second match of the night, Tanahashi and Murashima taking on Hanma and Ishii. Third match of the night, United Empire's Akira, Great Okan, and Jeff Cobb versus Just 5 Guys, Sonata, Taichi, and Taka. Fourth match of the night, United Empire's Callum Newman and Henare taking on the House of Torture's Kanemaru and Yujiro. Fifth match of the night, we got Bishamon taking on the Bull Club team of Chase Owens and Geto. And then in your sixth match of the night, B block qualifier, Toriano versus Oleg Boltin. Seventh match of the night, Kojima versus TJP in a qualifier. And then your main event is the LIJ team of Bushi, Naito, Teton, and Tsuji taking on House of Torture's Dick Togo, Evil, Ren Narita, and Sho. We did have a question here from Trish Spears of the Trish and Sarah podcast. She says, with the original report suggesting Moxley was booked for the Soul Tour and him being on the Bloodsport card in Tokyo on Saturday, will he turn up on Sunday's show?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance to build up for the Forbidden Door match. He cut a pretty heated promo on Naito this past Saturday on Collision. And I could definitely see, you have a LIJ, close the show kind of moment, and then Moxley runs out and he's just beating the crap out of Naito.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a pretty good point she makes there and something to pay attention to. And, you got Naito on top both nights, so, anything's possible. But if Moxley's in the country, I wouldn't be surprised he is the champion after all. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make an appearance. Last bit here, we've got the UJPW Altogether Sapporo show that took place Saturday, June 15th from Hokkaido Prefectural Sports Center. Drew a crowd of 2,156 attendees. The results of that show, Hanma and Yano defeated Andreza, the Giant Panda, and Tomoya. Second match of the night, the TMDK team of Fujita, Eagles, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Hayata, Ulka Sasaki, and Yu Owada. Third match of the night, Azumi and Starlight Kid, they wrestled to a 15-minute time limit draw. Fourth match of the night, Bishamon defeated Daichi Hashimoto and Daisuke Sekimoto. Fifth match of the night, Kazusada, Higuchi, and the United Empire's Okan and Jeff Cobb, they defeated Oleg Boltin, Oiwa, and Tetsuya Endo. Sixth match of the night, Just 5 Guys, Sonata, Taichi, and Uemura defeated Tanahashi, Kento Miyahara, and Naomichi Marufuji. Seventh match of the night, Masa Kitamiya finally gets his big win and defeats Tomohiro Ishii, 13 minutes, 42 seconds. Eighth match of the night, LIJ, that was Bushi, Takahashi, Shingo, Teton, and Yota Tsuji. They defeated the GLG team of Anthony Green, Jack Morris, and LJ Cleary, along with Bull Club War Dog members Clark Connors and Joel Maloney. semi-main event, Bull Club War Dogs, David Finlay, and Gabe Kidd, along with Yohei, defeated the All Rebellion team of Alejandro, Kaito Kiyomiya, and Kano. And then in your main event, Tetsuya Naito defeated Jake Lee in 26 minutes and 32 seconds. Jeremy, I did not watch this show. I know that you dipped a little bit into the Keeping It Strong style funds, purchased this show. And, did you watch it all? Tell me, overall thoughts, anything that you want to pay special attention to. I will say more and more as time is going on, these shows are feeling more and more like just periphery, non-essential, non-canon shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fine show. I watched it. I mean, again, you could miss these shows and not miss a whole ton of what's going on. I think some of the highlight stuff for me, dropping down to the sixth match, Kento Miyahara was really over with this crowd. He got a big reaction. I know they made a big deal of him teaming up with Tanahashi and Marufuji. And, speaking of an outsider that would, do great in like a G1 scenario and do great in New Japan, it would be him. And I know he's, top All Japan guy, and he's their ace, and he's probably not going to leave the company. But I'm like, man, if that's a guy you want to try and poach, it's another guy that's like established, has a star power, has great matches. Like, he's a guy that I would try to bring over more if possible.
My hot take on that, and there's probably people are going to be shocked on this or surprised, but I would take Miyahara any day over Takeshita. And and that's not saying Takeshita is not one of the tip top guys in the industry. He is, but that's how highly I view Kento Miyahara. I think he's like one of the all-time very best wrestlers in Japan or in the world, and he just doesn't get the stage to show it. And I could only imagine, even with him not being quite the prime he was at like 5 or 6 years ago, I could only fathom to imagine what Kento Miyahara in a G1 looks like. It would be fucking incredible.
Yeah. Then after that, Masa Kitamiya, Tomohiro Ishii rematch. Awesome matchup, and we're gonna talk about their other match they had this year in the recommended match, but
we're probably gonna have to push that just a week because I had a crazy hectic schedule with my roof caving in and was not able to watch those matches.
All right. But yeah, this was another awesome match in this series. After watching all of them now, I would say that the Noah match in May was probably the best match that they've had, but this match was also pretty great. It's 13 minutes. They went out there. It's what you expect. Hard-hitting action. Kiyomiya finally getting the win there. And then moving down to War Dogs and Yohei versus All Rebellion. Gabe Kidd and Kaito Kiyomiya, they've done an excellent job making this a blood feud. Pretty much every time they're out there, Kaito is bleeding. He's bleeding here in this match, and they're going at each other. And, the heels get the win here, building up to the title match that Kiyomiya had the next day defending against Gabe Kidd. So I heard that was a really great match. And the heat and just the work there in that match was really cool. And then
I assume Gabe Kidd is not the GHC world champion. Otherwise, I would have heard about that.
Yeah, I think we would have known by now if he would have been all over Twitter. And then the main event, Naito and Jake Lee, it was fine. It wasn't a blow-away match. It's 2024 Naito and it's Jake Lee. It was a nice little match. Naito gets the win. Send everybody home. It was fun.
I didn't see this angle, but I heard that they had done that tag match recently with a preview to this match, and they did a really great job of having like Naito, and I don't know who he teamed with, but I think it might have been.
I think it was Shingo.
Was it? Yeah, it was Shingo, and they said like that Naito like was going overboard, like healing it up almost to the point where you started to believe that, that they might have Jake Lee actually win the match because that's how much like Naito was healing it up. But of course Naito wins. Mm-hmm. I and on the one hand, I was saying earlier that I think Jake Lee will probably get the win back in the G1. but there's no guarantee that that's the case.
Yeah, Naito could just beat this man again.
He might just beat him clean twice, like in the span of a few months. So, yeah. But sounds like the only thing that you saw on that show that was like really, can't miss, recommended was like Masaki Miya versus Tomohiro Ishii.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So let's jump into the news. Couple news items here. Wednesday on Dynamite, Zack Sabre Jr. Teamed with Roderick Strong, Konosuke Takeshita, and Kyle Fletcher to face off against Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy. Is this coming up this Wednesday?
Yeah, this Wednesday.
Oh, my bad. They will be teaming up to take on Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and Dante Martin. It was announced that Shingo Takagi is entering the Owen Hart Memorial Cup tournament. So looks like they are loading up that tournament quite a bit. Shingo is, going to be the New Japan representative in that tournament, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think we're getting Shingo versus Danielson.
They've had one match before in Dragon Gate USA, and if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. It's excellent. New Japan Tamashii will make its return on Sunday, July 28th at the Rolston College Auditorium in Christchurch. You'll see the Tamashii card in the country. Oh, Christchurch will see the first Tamashii card in the country since the Oceania sub-brand's launch in November 2022. So that is going to do it for the news. We got a few questions here, and then we're going to take it home.
Yeah, so a question here from Chase in Discord. Any matches from pre-King of Strong Style Shinsuke you enjoy a lot? I'm partial to his Takayama Nakanishi back-to-back in 2010.
I don't have any specific recommendations off the top of my head, but doing a little bit of thinking, I liked some of the Takayama matches at Wrestle Kingdom. They didn't always get love, but I liked some of those. Obviously, there's the Tanahashi matches. That was his, main rival, and they had quite a few Tokyo Dome matches and big title matches for both the IWGP and the U30 title that are noteworthy. Him and Yuji Nagata had a couple really good matches in that early period. I would say, go to Cage Match, look up that time period, see what he has that's out there, and it's probably going to be mostly pretty accurate. I don't know if I can think of anything else off the top of my head. Those are like the three that come to mind immediately.
Brock Lesnar.
The Brock match isn't bad, actually. It's just like Brock is so overpowered and just no sells pretty much almost everything. Like Nakamura had like almost no presence and position in the match, and this was a Nakamura returning after he'd already held the world title, I think once or twice, maybe just once, and kind of fizzled out in his initial incarnation, and then went to Mexico the first time, was on an excursion, and then returned to challenge Brock Lesnar in the Dome. And it was like a big deal. The King of Strong Style returns, and it was a really hyped match. And you thought it was going to be like, this is the first time we see Brock like push to the limit, and they didn't go very long, and Brock kind of just ate him up. Nakamura does work hard. It's not a bad match. It's probably one of the better Brock New Japan matches, but Brock was not interested in working hard or putting on good matches at that time, like whatsoever.
Yeah.
It could have been so much better. So yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily one. I mean, I could look at Cage Match real quick, because I mean, we're doing okay on time. Let me just look real quick. Is there anything that you can think of?
Yeah, I was gonna say like the Tanahashi matches. I don't have one in particular, but I know I've watched a couple of the matches that he's had of Tanahashi during that time frame. They've all been great. I don't think you can go wrong with also those guys mixing it up. But yeah, I'd like to see what a Cage Match has.
There is a 2011 Nakamura Naito match that I believe is pre-Strong Style. that is very highly rated from the G1. That one is probably something worth going out of your way to check out. That seems to be the only one that I can like really pinpoint at this time, aside from the stuff that we've already mentioned.
Gotcha.
There's a Go Shiozaki match from Noah in 2010. And Toshiaki Kawada match. Yeah, the Kawada match is from the Dome. I believe, or no, that's from the G1 2008. That one's really good too. So yeah, those are a few things to check out.
Cool. He also asks Josh's thoughts on UFC 303 would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, so if for those of you that are not MMA fans, Conor McGregor was slated to fight Michael Chandler at UFC 303. I believe it's it's at Madison Square Garden, and it's the highest selling gate ever for ticket sales for an MMA fight or for any non-boxing combat sport arena show ever. Not stadium show, but arena show. And that's including like pretty much all of kickboxing, all of MMA, pro wrestling, all of that. And they just did monster numbers. And then like a week or two ago, there was supposed to be a press conference, and Conor didn't show up for the press conference. And then there was all this, like, there's a lot of secrecy. And keep in mind, they've already sold like almost all these tickets. And there have been ongoing issues with Conor McGregor leading up to the fight. He wasn't doing press. Then he didn't do this press conference. And then, there was rumblings that they started shopping around alternate matches that might replace that match. All the same, in the meanwhile, the Nevada State Athletic Commission's not stepping in. Nobody's doing anything to necessarily protect the consumer, who a lot of people are fly-ins. They've already bought their hotel rooms. They've already booked their flights. They spent all this money. They paid a premium thinking that they're going to see Conor McGregor in his return fight. And then lo and behold, like a few days ago, it turns out that Conor is not on the card. The match is not happening. It's probably being rescheduled. They said that Conor had suffered an injury. It's a minor injury, and he'll be able to fight in like 2 months. I don't know. Something's very afoul here. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists that Conor is lobbying to make more money or something of that nature, and that's probably very plausible. In the meantime, we're getting a rematch for the light heavyweight title between Alex Pereira and Yuri Prohaska, which that's always going to be an incredible fight. Those two guys are snipers and just warriors and killers. But I don't know if it's befitting. I mean, it's a great replacement fight. The UFC 303 card has changed quite a bit. It doesn't look very, it doesn't on paper, when you look at it, it's just not
Madison Square Garden worthy.
It's not that it's not even Madison Square Garden worthy, but it's not worthy of being the highest grossing live gate for an arena show ever in the history of the sport. Like, it's not that. And I do know that fans can get refunds for their tickets. That's true. They can ask for that. But then at the same time, it's like, how are you going to recoup all the other losses for the money that you've already put down? A lot of places you can't, get a refund on that stuff. So a lot of people are kind of screwed from that standpoint.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. And then, Alex Pereira, he's a fucking beast. Like, he just fought not that long ago and knocked out Jamal Hill. And now he's returning on short notice to fight another killer, a guy who he already beat, but he could easily, it could go the other way very easily because both guys have that one hit quitter, knockout power. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. Let's Commission 7252 asks comments on AJ Styles facing Marufuji next month at their pay-per-view.
I don't really have anything. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's not good in a lot of ways, but in a vacuum, having guys cross the promotional waters to fight each other in dream matches, very similar to the way that a year or two ago they had Nakamura come over to Noah and fight Keiji Muto or the Great Muta. That was also very exciting and created a lot of buzz. That was cool. And this is kind of akin to that. I do think it's interesting that they made that announcement on the same day that New Japan made their announcement for the G1. I don't know if that was intentional or not. At the same time, anytime New Japan or anytime any company gets, and we've covered this exhaustively in the past, when a company gets in bed with WWE, it spells trouble for that brand. So they got to be very careful about letting WWE get their tentacles and their hooks into them, even if it's a quote unquote different company. There's 50 years of precedent there. So
Yeah.
it is going to be different though to see AJ Styles wrestle in Japan, but not in a New Japan ring. The fact that he's going to Noah to wrestle Marufuji, I don't even know how good that match will be. Marufuji can still go to a certain extent, but it won't be what it probably would have been a decade ago.
Yeah, a decade ago. Oh my gosh, that match would have been like mind blowing. I'm sure they'll probably get to like 4 stars, but it should be fun. His other question, let's see, feelings on major companies finally teaming up all around the world, with WWE being the missing piece without Vince holding the company back. Wrestling feels more exciting, and anything is possible now. Hopefully, we get to see more of this for years to come.
I'm still very skeptical about any sort of altruistic motivations for WWE to work with outside companies the way that they're working with Impact or the way they're working with Noah. I think it's just very suspicious timing that Impact is possibly near extinction, and suddenly WWE is all buddy with them, and Noah hasn't necessarily had the strongest business recently. We know that they've made offers to purchase them and other Japanese brands in the past. And the one thing I will say, it is exciting. It is cool. Anything is possible. But I can't imagine that, even though there's this Abima partnership thing going on between New Japan and Noah, I just don't see how a working relationship would long-term be feasible if they do in fact strengthen that WWE relationship, and that New Japan is working, extensively with AEW. I think that the tea leaf is there that these two brands are going to split and probably stop working together in the near future because they'll be beholden to their larger Western counterparts.
Yeah, they made that AJ Styles announcement on the same night that Gabe Kidd is challenging, Kiyomiya for the title. And so, yeah, I allude to this on the Patreon. I was like, I don't see how much longer these guys can work together. Yeah, with Noah being in WWE and then New Japan with AEW, it's definitely, there's going to be some conflicting stuff there. And, ultimately, I think it is kind of cool to have an open playing field and have guys work together and do dream matches. But the problem is when you have all these companies working together, there's always a bunch of politics, and then sometimes you end up with stuff like All Together where you just have a bunch of multi-man matches and you're not getting the big money dream matches that you want to see because everybody's trying to protect their guy. They're trying to, do business. They're trying to, have even footing. And you miss out on the whole purpose of like wanting these inter-brand warfare things is to see top guys from each company facing off, not to see these guys on a 10-man tag or to see an established guy against like a really young guy. I think those are some of the cons that people don't realize when you start throwing in all these companies working together. Like, everybody's going to want to protect their guy. Everybody's going to be looking out for their bottom dollar, and it's going to make the booking very complicated.
Agreed.
Hawaiian Punch BB asks, with Hiromu producing All-Star Junior Festival last year and El Desperado producing the Despi Invitational, are there any other juniors that you would like to see have a show booked?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody really that's at that level, at that star power to really kind of do that thing. I mean, I guess you could kind of, if you want to have like Liger come in and do like a special like Liger produced show, but I mean, he kind of, what I hear, has a lot of say in Super Junior, so that I think that's kind of already his kind of thing. So, but besides that, I can't really think of anybody that I'm like, oh yeah, They should do a junior show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like maybe a Robbie show could be cool, but like I just can't really see it. Or, it's like, what's Doki gonna produce? What's Fujita gonna produce? Like, I don't know. I just don't have that much interest in I don't know. Me personally, I was kind of disappointed by the All-Star Junior Festivals, what they became, what they could have been, and what they actually were in practice. And I still haven't watched the Doki Produce show. We said we are gonna put it on I was gonna touch base with you this week, where I was like, you said we were gonna put it on Patreon. I was like, when are we gonna find time to put that shit on? Like a 10-minute blurb. Like, what's the plan? Like, when do we do this? My schedule's been busy, but yeah, I don't know. And I know a lot of people enjoyed the show. I heard really good things, but everything I heard screamed to me, not my wrestling.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He also asked, with Jake Lee disbanding Goten Guys, that's 2 Noah factions that have been disbanded by Naito's hands. Who's next? I
don't even know what the fuck factions exist in Noah, so I couldn't tell you.
All Rebellion.
If that's a thing, I don't know.
That's Kiyomiya's faction.
I don't know, man.
All right, well,
I don't watch that Noah trash.
That's it for the questions. He said we're holding on recommended match.
I will get it done this week, bro. It's, with my mental illness, it's just hard to do everything all the time. Trying to get it on the straight and narrow, steady path, but I think I'll get it this week.
All right, so they were it was Ishii and Kitamiya from the May Noah show, and then Zack Sabre versus Daniel Makabe.
Yep, gotta watch that one. I can still wrestle, by the way.
Oh yeah, how's the training been going?
I didn't get blown up.
Nice.
I can still take a bump. I can run spots. I can't tell people where I'm training because it's a secret, but I was in a nice, like an actual, like the nicest ring I've ever been in, and I was like, oh shit, a professional ring. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I still suck, but I suck about as much as I did before, so pretty good.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up the show for this week. Next week, we'll be back to review New Japan Seoul. Also, we'll preview Forbidden Door coming up as well. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On X, follow us at KI Strong Style. Follow the network at Suplex. Follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, actually, lost my spot here. Botchamania. Join our Social Suplex. Well, the problem is my iPad died, so now I'm looking off my phone, which is a lot smaller than my iPad. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr. and Austin Samoans. Imps WWE Adventure with the Implications Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Slings. Tunnel Talk with Allie, Ann, and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keeping It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Everyone knows therapy is great for solving problems, But getting therapy has its own problems too, like finding the right therapist, fitting into their schedule, and of course, the cost. Well, BetterHelp can solve those problems. It's totally online and built around your schedule. It's surprisingly affordable too. Connect with a credentialed therapist by phone, video, or online chat, all from the comfort of your home. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% on your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P.